Chapter 805. Soon the imperial edict was announced to the world. When Leng Shiqi returned to the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, many of his subordinates had already gathered at the Xingji Pavilion. They all knew that Leng Shiqi was about to leave the imperial capital for the Western Desolate Province. Interestingly, although he had acquiesced to give up his position as the commander of the Dark Thunder Guard, he did not step down as one of the 4 directors. In other words, he still had the power to supervise the 9 eastern counties. He was going to guard the western border and supervise the 9 eastern counties, so he still had a lot of power. So for his subordinates, they had to make a choice. Would they choose to stay in the imperial capital or follow him to the Western Desolate Province? Since these people could stay in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard, it was enough to prove their ability. Moreover, the imperial capital was full of high officials and nobles. The status of the Dark Thunder Guard was special. Although they were not very popular, they could still get a lot of benefits. In the beginning, they had spent a lot of effort to enter the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard. Naturally, some people were unwilling to leave so easily. But then again, following Leng Shiqi to the Western Desolate Province was not a bad choice. In the Western Desolate Province, their power might not be as great as now, but their future might be better. Because Leng Shiqi was too monstrous. These people of the Dark Thunder Guard watched Leng Shiqi grow up step by step. They were sure that his path would be longer. Following such a master, their future would be bright. So, these people began to have their own ideas. Leng Shiqi walked in. Everyone immediately knelt on the ground and shouted, "Greetings, Head Steward Lu, greetings, Your Highness King of the Western Desolate Province. Don't be so polite. We are family. Get up." Leng Shiqi saw what they were thinking at a glance. He continued, "You all know about the matter, but I will go to the fief in a few days. Prepare well in these few days." Everyone knew that this was the time Leng Shiqi gave them to think. Of course, Leng Shiqi did have some things to deal with first. First of all, the candidates for the new 4 great chiefs. Mo Linhui had mentioned to his soul avatar a long time ago about the replacement of the 4 Dark Thunder Guards. However, at that time, there was a beast tide, so the matter was temporarily put aside. Now that the Miasma mountain range had been cleared, and Leng Shiqi was about to leave the capital, he needed to properly manage the Dark Thunder Guards before he left. This was his foothold and he couldn't afford to lose it. According to him, the one to be replaced among the 4 great general managers was General Manager Hai. He was already old and it was time for him to abdicate. Originally, after every change of imperial power, at least 2 of the 4 chief stewards would be replaced. Coincidentally, Leng Shiqi was also newly appointed, so they could only replace Chief Steward Hai. Mo Linhui had once recommended a few people, but those people were all closely related to him, so he definitely couldn't use them. Leng Shiqi already had a candidate in mind, Quan Jingji. This person had competed with Leng Shiqi for the position of one of the 4 great chiefs. He was too straightforward, so he was destined to fail. From Leng Shiqi's point of view, this kind of person was the most suitable for an important position, especially for an intelligence organization like the Dark Thunder Guards. Now that this matter had been decided, the next step was for his soul avatar to make the decision. Other than that, there was another person who should return, and that was Eunuch Gao. When Lei Haoge was still the crown prince, he had indirectly sent Eunuch Gao to the imperial tombs for 3 years. Now, only half of the 3 years had passed, and his authority had always been in the hands of a few deputy directors. If Leng Shiqi remained in the capital, those people naturally wouldn't dare to do anything. After he left, there would inevitably be some trouble. It was best to transfer Eunuch Gao back quickly. Even though Eunuch Gao had always been using Leng Shiqi to nurture him, if not for the many opportunities Eunuch Gao had given him, he wouldn't have been able to get to where he was today so easily. When Eunuch Gao returned, he could also help Leng Shiqi look after the 9 eastern prefectures. It was a win-win situation. These 2 things could be done by his soul avatar, and he still had to go find Empyrean Black Flame. This time, he had given up the opportunity to become the Dark Thunder Guard's commander, which could be considered as selling a great favor to Empyrean Black Flame. This favor had to be returned. But he didn't expect that before he went to find Empyrean Black Flame, the other party had already come. A wisp of black flame floated in front of Leng Shiqi, and Empyrean Black Flame's figure appeared. He was looking at Leng Shiqi with an inexplicable expression. "Greetings, great commander. You are already the king of the Western Wilderness, so there is no need to salute. I didn't expect you to choose to give up the Dark Thunder Guard's commander. You are not such a person." Empyrean Black Flame said doubtfully. Leng Shiqi smiled. "Great commander is right. I am indeed a very ambitious person, but the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. If I blindly pursue great power, I might end up burning myself. Empyrean Black Flame nodded in appreciation. You are young and in the limelight, yet you can still maintain such a clear mind. Do you know how many people like you have died an unnatural death? In addition, the position of Dark Thunder Guard's commander is not a good one. I have too many unknown secrets of the Thunderflame dynasty, so many that you can't even imagine. You being able to leave the quagmire that is the imperial capital in time to manage a province is also a good choice. However, after you leave, it will be difficult for His Majesty to find someone to take over my position in a short period of time. I cannot take this favor for free. Take this. Empyrean Black Flame took out 2 jade slips. One of them contains all the information about the Western Wilderness Province, no matter how big or small. I believe it will be useful to you. As for the other one, it records the thunder attribute, Divine Thunder of Annihilation. Not only does it have the specific location, but it also has the method to collect and refine it. Leng Shiqi didn't refuse and took the 2 jade slips. Of these 2 things, one could help him control the Western Wilderness Province, and the other could greatly increase his strength. He had to admit that they were both things he wanted. It seemed that Empyrean Black Flame had come prepared. Thank you, Commander. There's no need for such polite words. I have a premonition that even if you're far away in the Western Desolate Province, you won't remain silent. I want to see just how far you can go. Heavenly Sovereign He Yen left before his voice faded. Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed. He then put away the 2 jade slips and continued to recuperate in seclusion. In the Blood Beast sect, a group of higher-ups gathered in front of a formation. The leader was the current sect master, Situ Huanshu. Their expressions were very solemn. A formation master said, Sect Master, we have tried our best to track the sovereign beast's aura, but we found that it is extremely far away. Based on the direction, it should be in the Thunderflame dynasty. Thunderflame dynasty. Situ Huanshu felt that it was very troublesome. Beside him, Xie Pingyu suddenly clapped his hands and said, Sect Master, the location indicated by the formation is the demonic Miasma mountain range that I went to a few years ago. Chapter 806. Of course, everyone in the Blood Beast sect knew about the demonic Miasma mountain range. Other than the extreme north, only the demonic Miasma mountain range had demonic beasts in the entire Starfall continent. Occasionally they would make a trip to the demonic Miasma mountain range to capture demonic beasts. However, due to the distance, they couldn't go there easily unless there were special circumstances. For example, 9 Leaves Tribulation. When Xie Pingyu mentioned the demonic Miasma mountain range, Situ Huanshu asked, You mean Zhuozhou is in the demonic Miasma mountain range? Sect Master, I can't be sure. However, judging from the location, it's very likely. Xie Pingyu didn't give a definite answer. The matter of the revered beast is of great importance. We can't be careless. You've been to the demonic Miasma mountain range before, so I'll have to trouble you to make another trip. Xie Pingyu revealed a difficult expression and said hesitantly, It's not a big deal. However, Sect Master, the new emperor of the Thunderfire dynasty has just ascended the throne. This Lei Haoyan is very powerful. It won't be easy for us heavenly origin stage cultivators to enter the Thunderfire dynasty. Situ Huanshu narrowed his eyes and pondered for a moment before saying, It's not difficult. Follow me to the imperial city of the Northern Wei dynasty. I believe they will be willing to help us. Northern Wei dynasty, Imperial Palace. The current emperor of the Northern Wei dynasty, Wei Xuandi, sat in his study with a worried expression. There were 2 items on the table in front of him. One of them was a broken blood-colored jade token, while the other was a memorial. The blood-colored jade token was an item that contained Zhuozhou's blood essence. The fact that the token was broken meant that Zhuozhou was dead. In order to recruit Zhuozhou, the Northern Wei dynasty had paid a huge price to fake his death. Later on, Zhuozhou became the head of the consecration hall with his powerful strength and had done many things for the Northern Wei dynasty. Not long ago he said that he wanted to sneak into the Thunderfire dynasty. At first, Wei Xuandi didn't take it to heart. Zhuozhou was a peak heavenly origin stage cultivator. As long as it wasn't the Thunderfire dynasty's old man Qiao, no one could stop him. However, he had miscalculated. Zhuozhou had died inexplicably. This was a huge loss for Wei Xuandi. His Northern Wei dynasty's foundation was far inferior to the Starfall dynasty and the Thunderfire dynasty. Zhuozhou was already one of the few experts that they could send out. But now he had actually fallen. Not only that, but the other report was a reprimand from the Thunderfire dynasty. He even said that he would send a group of envoys over to Northern Wei to clarify the situation. The Northern Wei Empire was in the wrong in this matter, and Emperor Xuandi of Wei was having a headache. At this moment someone came in and reported, "Your Majesty, the Blood Beast sect leader Sidu Huanshu and Grand Elder Xie Pingyu have arrived." Wei Xuandi was stunned. His eyes flashed with a trace of uneasiness, but it was immediately replaced by a burst of brilliance. He smiled and said, "Please?" Within the underworld, Leng Shiqi, Delta Origi, Yushu and Meng Ming had gathered in the form of the Netherlamp. "You've been crowned king? You want to go to the Western Desolate Prefecture. Then how are you going to deal with the Dark Thunder Guards?" When the three of them heard the news about Leng Shiqi, they all asked about it. "Everyone thinks that I'm the most favored person in front of the Emperor, but in his heart, he has already begun to fear me. Since that's the case, it's better to leave as soon as possible." Leng Shiqi did not speak the truth. After all, the matter of his soul avatar possessing the Emperor was not something that could be spread. Delta Origi nodded and said, "Even so, but how are you going to explain to the Blood Robe Pavilion?" Yushu and Meng Ming also looked over. Leng Shiqi left just like that. Becoming a prince with a different surname was not bad. But this was not a good thing for the Blood Robe Pavilion. If Leng Shiqi became the great commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, it could be said that the Blood Robe Pavilion's plan was already half completed. When the Blood Robe Pavilion rose up, as long as Leng Shiqi secretly manipulated it, who in the world would dare to go against him? This would be able to control more than half of the spirit cultivator sects, reducing most of the pressure on the Blood Robe Pavilion. But now that Leng Shiqi gave up the position of great commander and became a prince, this was a huge opportunity for the Blood Robe Pavilion. One could imagine that soon, the upper echelons of the Blood Robe Pavilion would come looking for them. However, Leng Shiqi smiled coldly. "There's no need to explain to the Blood Robe Pavilion. If they're smart, they can only continue to maintain their current relationship with me, because I already have enough qualifications to talk to them on equal terms." The number of Unity of Heaven and Man experts under his command was already more than the Blood Robe Pavilion. Although he himself was not at the Sky Origin realm, after absorbing the power of the Blood Beast altar and the two demons, his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. He could completely fight against the Sky Origin realm expert. In addition, he had also received a part of the power of the Star Race's ruins. At this moment he was only one step away from the Sky Origin realm. Unless several Sky Origin realm experts of the Blood Robe Pavilion attacked at the same time, he was not afraid of anyone. This was the confidence that strength gave him. The Blood Robe Pavilion had cultivated him and Delta Origi, and at the same time they were also using them. Both sides could be considered as using each other, and they had always maintained this relationship of interest. That was why Leng Shiqi said that the Blood Robe Pavilion would not easily attack him. "You must always remember that strength is the foundation of standing in this world. After I leave, you must do your best to improve your strength." "Don't worry," Yushu said with a smile. Xiong Ming nodded in agreement. After that, the few of them discussed for a while and then dispersed, but Delta Origi stayed. "I can't help you more and more." During the last trip to the demonic Miasma Mountains, Delta Origi could not do anything from the beginning to the end. Even though she knew that Leng Shiqi was in a dangerous place, she could not do anything. This matter had always been on her mind. How could Leng Shiqi not know what she was thinking? He said, "Don't think too much. I've already left you a backup plan. Next, you just need to show your talent and ability to your heart's content. I think it won't be long before you have a place in the 4 Great Punishment Emissaries." He could not help but ask Delta Origi more. He continued, "Did that Yun Xingxing you mentioned last time still come to bother you?" "Occasionally. There's already news from the Discipline Commission that Monarch Cloud Shuttle is about to abdicate. Yun Xingxing has been busy forming factions recently, so he doesn't have much time to bother me." "Is that so?" Leng Shiqi's killing intent slowly rose in his heart. Delta Origi instantly saw through Leng Shiqi's thoughts. "I don't care what you want to do, but if you want to do it cleanly. Also, before you leave, give me some more essence blood." At the mention of essence blood, Leng Shiqi thought of the blood shadow secret technique that Delta Origi had created. He wondered to what extent she had researched it. After the last battle, he had also lost a lot of essence blood. Fortunately, he had replenished it recently, so this was not a problem. Chapter 807. The next day something big happened in the royal capital. Yun Xingxing, the personal disciple of the Discipline Commission's Monarch Cloud Shuttle, died in his room. Monarch Cloud Shuttle was a calm person, but this time he was furious. He swore to find the murderer and avenge his disciple. He was about to abdicate, so before he left, he had been paving the way for Yun Xingxing, hoping that he could take over his position. He had no children, so he loved this disciple very much. But now Yun Xingxing was dead. And he died mysteriously. There were no wounds on Yun Xingxing's body, but there was no sign of life. It was as if his soul had been taken away. Monarch Cloud Shuttle did everything he could, but he couldn't find the cause of Yun Xingxing's death. He even invited Lord Black Flame and the Dark Thunder Guards, but it was all for naught. The one who did this was naturally Leng Shiqi. He quietly snuck into Yun Xingxing's room and used the 6 paths of reincarnation to take away his soul. Leng Shiqi wanted to kill Yun Xingxing not only because he wanted the Delta Origi, but also because he would be a stumbling block for the Delta Origi. He would have to get rid of him sooner or later. This matter caused a stir in the royal capital, and Leng Shiqi was entertaining someone. He was Eunuch Gao. His soul doppelganger had already ordered Eunuch Gao to come back. Today he had arrived at the Dark Thunder Guard's headquarters. Eunuch Gao seemed to have changed a lot. His previous gloominess had faded a lot, and there was even a hint of kindness. Leng Shiqi thought he was seeing things. Eunuch Gao laughed and said, "What, don't you recognize me? Master, you have changed a little. Alas, the late emperor has passed away. I have my wish to keep the power of the 4 great chiefs. This is all thanks to you. Now my status is not small and I have no children by my side. What is there to be dissatisfied with? If I have to say what I want, it is only the heaven's origin realm." Leng Shiqi inwardly agreed. Eunuch Gao's power and status had already reached the limit. Perhaps the time he spent guarding the mausoleum had allowed him to quietly observe everything. The most desirable thing in this world was power. If Eunuch Gao was a sky origin stage cultivator, he wouldn't have to spend so much effort to train his followers to protect his power. When you have enough power, authority will naturally follow. Eunuch Gao stretched out a finger, and there were 2 streams of light revolving around it. One was the underworld cold chi that Eunuch Gao was most proficient in. The other one surprised Leng Shiqi. It was actually a wisp of Buddhist light. During my time in the Imperial Mausoleum, I understood many things. In my spare time, I have been thinking about how to break through to the sky origin stage. Unexpectedly, I found that the flower-pinching form that I got from you can coexist with the frigid hell chi. Even though they were clearly opposing forces, they could still rely on each other. This allowed the miscellany to find a path to the divine origin realm. Unfortunately, the flower-pinching form's level is too low. I have already studied it to the extreme. If I can learn something similar to the flower-pinching form's power, I may be able to make further progress in my lifetime. The more Leng Shiqi listened, the more shocked he became. He never thought that the flower-pinching form that he casually took out would be the key to Eunuch Gao's breakthrough. However, he thought about it again. Eunuch Gao was a eunuch who cultivated the frigid hell chi. He didn't have any yang energy. The Buddhist light was the most yang energy. The harmony of yin and yang caused Eunuch Gao's temperament to change. At the same time, it was the key to his breakthrough. Thinking of this, Leng Shiqi had an idea. Eunuch Gao was hinting that Leng Shiqi didn't have any more Buddhist cultivation techniques on him by mentioning this in front of him. He had a lot of Buddhist techniques. If he gave Eunuch Gao a few and let him study them, he might be able to break through to the sky origin stage. However, he couldn't give them away for free. Right now, Leng Shiqi was more powerful than Eunuch Gao. He didn't know what Eunuch Gao could give him in exchange. All of a sudden, a thought flashed through Leng Shiqi's mind. He looked at Eunuch Gao, who had changed greatly, and asked tentatively, "Master, do you trust this disciple? Xingji, you have already surpassed your master. I don't have any evil intentions towards you. I don't have the ability to do that. Just tell me what you want." Leng Shiqi looked straight at Eunuch Gao and said, "Then this disciple will speak frankly. To be honest, I do have some cultivation methods and spirit techniques that are similar to the flower-grasping form. I call them Buddhist cultivation methods. I can give them all to you. If you can break through to the sky origin stage, it will be great for me. However, I have a condition." "It's normal to have a condition. Tell me, what is the value of my old bones?" Eunuch Gao was half joking with Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi set up restrictions around them and said carefully, "I want to invite you to join my organization called the Underworld. It's not a force. There are very few members and we don't know each other's identities. Our goal is to take what we need and benefit each other. After I go to the West Desolate Province, I need you to help me look after the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters. It will be easier for us to go through the underworld." That's right, Leng Shiqi wanted to invite Eunuch Gao to join the underworld. If it was before, he wouldn't even dare to think about it. However, with Leng Shiqi's improvement and eunuch Gao's change, he had this idea. First of all, the two of them had a purely beneficial relationship from the beginning. This kind of relationship couldn't be said to be loyal or absolute trust. However, they had worked together for a long time and knew each other well. Leng Shiqi believed that after eunuch Gao received benefits from the underworld, he would only keep his mouth shut. In addition, since eunuch Gao had touched the threshold of the sky origin stage, it meant that his talent was very strong. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to touch the foot of the mountain. Therefore, eunuch Gao could also reach the level of the 10 kings of hell and help Leng Shiqi complete one of the conditions for the underworld to upgrade. Finally, and also the most important thing for Leng Shiqi. After eunuch Gao received the inheritance of the underworld and learned more Buddhist techniques, he had a great chance of breaking through to the sky origin stage. Once he became a sky origin stage expert, he could be promoted to the position of the Dark Thunder Guard commander with just a decree from his soul avatar. Although Leng Shiqi gave up this position, he could indirectly control all the information in the world. It could be said to be killing many birds with one stone. Of course, all of this depended on eunuch Gao's thoughts. Eunuch Gao's eyelids twitched. It seems that you have begun to cultivate various forces. I have no objections to joining the underworld as long as there is a chance of breaking through to the sky origin stage. Thank you for your help, Master. How about this disciple bring Master to the underworld to take a look? Take a look? Eunuch Gao was slightly stunned. He thought that the underworld was just a name. He didn't expect it to be a place. Leng Shiqi smiled mysteriously. Don't resist, Master. After saying that, Leng Shiqi pulled eunuch Gao and teleported into the underworld in the blink of an eye. After entering the underworld, eunuch Gao was no different from those who had entered for the first time. He was shocked by the strange scene in the underworld. Leng Shiqi looked into the distance. Sure enough, above the underworld's 9 heavens, there was suddenly a black aura pouring down and enveloping eunuch Gao. The familiar yet strange voice resounded in the underworld again. King of Hell. Chapter 808. Several hours later, Leng Shiqi and eunuch Gao had already left the underworld, and eunuch Gao's expression still carried a hint of surprise. Master, you've obtained some inheritance. Why don't you hurry back and comprehend it? Eunuch Gao took a deep look at Leng Shiqi, nodded, and prepared to leave. However, before he left, he seemed to have suddenly thought of something and asked, I've been looking through the latest information for the past 2 days and found something interesting. Do you still remember Leng Shiqi, who was ranked on the Flying Dragon list in the previous World First Spirit Cultivator Assembly? Hearing the name Leng Shiqi, a strange feeling flashed through Leng Shiqi's heart. He replied, I do remember him a little. What happened to him? I don't know what happened to him, but I accidentally discovered that many people were secretly inquiring about this person. If it was an ordinary spirit cultivator sect, it would be fine, but the 6th Direction Spirit Region was among them. Eunuch Gao's tone was a little serious. 6th Direction Spirit Region. That was one of the 4 Saint Spirit Regions, the most powerful force in the Thunderfire dynasty. They even had a Tongxian realm expert like the 6th Direction Spirit Sovereign. Back then, it was the 6th Direction Spirit Sovereign who brought many experts into the palace. Now, the 6th Direction Spirit Region was inquiring about Leng Shiqi. What were they trying to do? Eunuch Gao guessed, I'm worried that the 6th Direction Spirit Region wants to use this Leng Shiqi to contact the overseas forces. The overseas spirit cultivator's cultivation is not high, but there are a few Sky Origin Realm experts. If the overseas forces are roped in by the 6th Direction Spirit Region, it will be a major threat to the dynasty. However, Leng Shiqi did not think that this was the goal of the 6th Direction Spirit Region, because he knew that the 6th Direction Spirit Region recognized the name Leng Shiqi. After Leng Shiqi returned to the Blood Cloth Pavilion from the Donglin County branch, he had a bet with the disciples of the 6th Direction Spirit Region, and they won in the end. At that time, Leng Shiqi had not participated in the Blood Seed plan, so he used this name. Perhaps the people of the Lioha Spiritual Region suddenly discovered that there was such a name on the Flying Dragon leaderboard and suspected that he was from the Blood Cloak Pavilion, so they went to inquire about it. Leng Shiqi thought so, but eunuch Gao's next words made his heart sink. Not only the 6th Direction Spiritual Region, but the mysterious Nether Temple is also investigating this person. The Netherworld Temple of the Yin and Yang Temples. One of the most mysterious forces on the Starfall continent, they were also inquiring about the Leng Shiqi. Is it finally here? Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Back then, when he had displayed the ghost god sword during the world's first spirit cultivator conference, some people had guessed that he might have come from the Nether Temple. The reason why Ling Shiqi did this was firstly to get on the Flying Dragon list, and secondly to lure out the Nether Temple. Now, it seemed that the other party had taken the bait. Ling Shiqi had never forgotten that he still had the bloodline of the Dark Shadow clan in his body, and the Dark Shadow clan was inextricably linked to the Nether Temple. After awakening the bloodline of the Star clan, he had obtained great benefits, so he coveted the bloodline of the Dark Shadow clan. Unfortunately, he did not know how to awaken the bloodline, nor did he know how to find the Nether Temple, so he could only use a more passive method. However, he was puzzled as to why he had not received any similar information. He asked, "Master, this is a serious matter. Why don't we report it to the commander?" "I have the same idea." If this matter was reported to the commander, Heavenly Master He Yen, then Heavenly Master He Yen would definitely report it to his soul avatar. Whether it was the Sixth Direction spiritual region or the Nether Temple, they were both thorns in the flesh of the Thunderblaze dynasty, so they had to be careful when dealing with them. In this way, Ling Shiqi could know the progress of this information at any time. After sending eunuch Gao away, Ling Shiqi continued to recuperate. A few days later, he stood in front of the door of Xingji Pavilion and looked at the group of people in front of him with surprise. He did not expect that 70% of the people would be willing to follow him to the Western Desolate Province. One had to know that although Ling Shiqi was leaving, Xingji Pavilion still had to operate normally. At least 30% of the people were needed to support it. In other words, other than those who were essential, everyone was willing to follow him. Ling Shiqi did not expect himself to have such great appeal. These people had not been with him for long, the longest being He Fei Chen and Old Huang's group. In total, they had only been with him for 1 or 2 years. In fact, Ling Shiqi knew that the reason why they were willing to leave was not because they were loyal to him, but because of the benefits and future. He did not care how greedy his subordinates were, or rather, the more they liked benefits, the more they would work hard. With these people following him to the Western Desolate Province, no matter what he did, they would be very useful. Of course, he was happy to do so. Ling Shiqi and the group exchanged pleasantries for a while and then prepared to set off. They did not have any special mission, so they did not use the interdomain teleportation formation and could only walk slowly to the Western Desolate Province. Fortunately, it was not as slow as the previous diplomatic group. On the contrary, these people were all experts and had some storage space on them, so their speed was not slow. It was estimated that they would reach the Western Desolate Province in a little more than a month. These few days, the things that could be dealt with were more or less settled. The only thing left was to go to the Zhuge family and release a few experts. There was no other way. Ling Shiqi's injuries were not healed yet, so he did not feel at ease going to the Zhuge family like this. Moreover, he was in the limelight now. The entire Thunderfire dynasty was paying attention to him, so it was not good for him to sneak in. This matter could only wait for the limelight to pass. The journey was calm and peaceful. When they reached the Western Desolate Province, they did not go to the Western Desolate City. Generally speaking, his mansion was located in the Western Desolate City, but Ling Shiqi did not choose this place. Instead, he had people build a mansion in a special place. That was the place with the densest spirit chi in the Western Desolate Province, the Spirit Sealing Wonderland Valley. This place was very magical. The spirit chi within 1,000 miles of it was very thin. Only in the valley the spirit chi was abnormally abundant, which was why it was named. Although the spirit chi was dense here, the strange thing was that there were no spirit cultivator sects established here. It was only because there were 2 spirit cultivators living in seclusion here. Spirit cultivators of the Sky Origin realm. These 2 were rogue cultivators. Since 100 years ago they had been living in seclusion here. Naturally, no one dared to establish a sect here. However, Ling Shiqi had taken a liking to this place at first glance. His imperial residence wasn't just an imperial residence. He wanted to nurture it as a force. He must have an abundance of spiritual energy. On this day, Ling Shiqi brought many experts under his command to the Spirit Sealing Wonderland Valley. Just as they approached, an old and deep voice came from afar. "Who are you?" Ling Shiqi cupped his fists towards the void and said, "I am Lu Xingji. I am here to be Senior's neighbor." Chapter 809. There were 2 thatched huts in the Spirit Sealing Strange Valley. A hunchbacked old man and an old woman walked out of the 2 thatched huts. The hunchbacked old man looked out of the valley with an unnatural expression. "Where did this brat come from? He doesn't know his limits," the old woman said unhappily. Little Lotus, I'm afraid we have quite a bit of trouble this time. Look, there are more than a dozen Unity of Heaven realm cultivators outside. The young man leading them is even at the peak of the Unity of Heaven realm. I can see that his aura is extraordinary, so his identity must be extraordinary. I just don't know what their goal is, the old man analyzed. Who cares what their goal is? If they know what's good for them, leave quickly. If not, we'll beat them until they know what's good for them. The old woman called Little Lotus did not seem to have a good temper. Outside the valley, Leng Shiqi saw that there was no movement inside. He lifted his foot and was about to walk in. Behind him, Renyi immediately shouted, "My lord, there are 2 heaven realm cultivators inside. We can't take the risk." "It's fine. I'll go and ask for some advice." Leng Shiqi casually waved his hand and moved his feet into the spirit-sealing strange valley. However, at that moment, a few blood-red lotus flowers descended from the sky. In the blink of an eye, the snow lotus petals danced. Each lotus petal contained an astonishing amount of blood fiend energy and heaven-earth essence energy. A show of strength? Leng Shiqi's expression did not change. He slashed out with the 1,000 illusion Dao sword in his hand. Countless sword chi constantly condensed. The sword chi condensed into sword threads. The threads intertwined like thousands of brilliant flowers blooming. The sky was filled with beautiful flowers. These flowers were not disorderly. Instead, they were arranged according to a strange pattern. He actually formed a sword array in an instant. In the next instant, the countless sword threads exploded with all kinds of strange sword chi. They swept across the 9 prefectures. There were many strange phenomena that dazzled the eyes. This was Leng Shiqi's ultimate sword array, sword chi and illusion technique, dazzling flowers. The snow lotuses were swept away by the dazzling flowers in an instant. They were utterly defeated. A surprised voice came from midair. Leng Shiqi raised his head and saw an old woman floating in the air with a surprised expression on her face. Although she had casually launched that attack, she was a Sky Origin Stage cultivator after all. She had planned to use it to scare Leng Shiqi off, but it had been easily neutralized. This kid is indeed not simple. However, the ferocious glint in the old woman's eyes grew even brighter. Her 5 fingers clawed downwards and in an instant, a sea of blood appeared. Countless lotuses floated within the sea of blood, making it look extremely demonic. Roar! Several dragon roars suddenly resounded through the heavens and earth. Leng Shiqi's back was ablaze with flames as 9 golden fire dragons spiraled into the sky. The blazing aura filled the entire spirit-sealing magical valley. It burned the spiritual energy, the elemental energy of heaven and earth, the blood sea, everything. Under the scorching heat of the crimson gold earth dragon flame, more than half of the sea of blood was instantly evaporated. The old woman frowned this time. She was just about to get serious, but she did not expect her sea of blood to be so easily neutralized. At this moment, an old man appeared beside her. He said, "That is the crimson gold earth dragon flame. It is very effective against your blood lotuses. Even my green bamboo sword can't deal with it. No matter how effective it is only at the unity of heaven and man stage." "Old man Green Bamboo, are you afraid?" Green Bamboo sighed. "This guy knows that we are here, but he still came alone. This kind of person is either a fool or has enough strength. Now that you have tested him, why don't you listen to what he wants?" "No, I haven't tested him enough. If he can really take one of my attacks, then he is qualified to sit down and talk." As soon as the old woman finished speaking, the powerful aura of a Sky Origin Stage cultivator suddenly came crashing down. She was finally serious. The elemental energy of heaven and earth within a radius of several thousand feet was stirred up. There was even a howling wind and a faint trace of blood. The old woman formed a seal with both hands. Demonic blood lotuses bloomed one after another. They were extremely beautiful, but they were filled with killing intent. Countless blood lotuses condensed to form a fist-sized bead. Leng Shiqi's expression froze. He could feel an extremely powerful energy from the bead. Boom. Leng Shiqi instantly turned into a demon with 6 arms and 2 wings. He looked ferocious and terrifying. However, his body immediately shone with a blinding Buddhist light. One thought of evil, 1 year of Buddha. After being refined by the blood beasts and absorbing the power of the 2 demons, Leng Shiqi integrated the indestructible Vajra body into it. This was the indestructible evil Buddha body. The old woman's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. She flicked her finger and the blood-colored pearl trembled. Then layers of lotus petals appeared. It was like a lotus flower that had just bloomed. Every time the lotus flower bloomed, heaven and earth would gently tremble. The lotus flower grew brighter and brighter as if it was about to explode. Leng Shiqi was sure that if the lotus flower was allowed to explode, the entire Feng Lingqi Valley would be razed to the ground. He clasped his hands together with a solemn expression. Immediately, a Buddhist light shone and a Buddha Dharma idol stood behind him. Leng Shiqi slammed his palm down. The origin energy of heaven and earth solidified, and a Buddha palm appeared above the 9 heavens. At the same time, Buddhist lotuses appeared in the sky and floated continuously, purifying all the filth in the world. The 9 dragons appeared again and climbed on top of the Buddha Dharma idol. The Buddha palm was ignited with a layer of golden flames. Vairocana dragon flame palm. The old woman had already put away all her contempt. Her heart was trembling. At this time she already regarded Leng Shiqi as an opponent of the same level. However, just as the two of them were about to fight, a mysterious figure suddenly appeared between them. It was a fat spirit cultivator. As soon as he appeared, he shouted, "Stop, all of you stop! Little Chu? Why are you here? How dare you attack me?" After Little Lotus recognized the person, he immediately burst out shouting. When Leng Shiqi saw that person, he immediately recognized him as his master, Wu Xiang. Of course, he could also be called Chu Hezheng. He guessed that Wu Xiang had been waiting for him in the Western Desolate Province since he left the capital. When he entered the Western Desolate Province, he did not hide his whereabouts. Instead, he came to the Feng Lingqi Valley openly. Naturally, Wu Xiang could find him here. Wu Xiang's purpose was none other than the Blood Robe Pavilion. Leng Shiqi gave up the Dark Thunder Guard commander and left the capital. This was not good for the Blood Robe Pavilion. Presumably, the Blood Robe Pavilion also realized that they could no longer control Leng Shiqi, so they must have sent Wu Xiang to sound him out first. However, Leng Shiqi did not know that Wu Xiang was acquainted with these 2 heaven origin stage cultivators. Wu Xiang shook his head and laughed. "Senior Qingzhu, Senior Lotus, this is all a misunderstanding. This Lu Xingji is my disciple." "Your disciple?" Qingzhu and Red Lotus had a look of disbelief. Wu Xiang had broken through to the heaven origin stage not long ago. Leng Shiqi was now at the peak of the unity of heaven and man realm. In other words, when Wu Xiang was at the unity of heaven and man realm, he already had a disciple at the same level. How was this possible? Chapter 8:10. Wu Xiang said, "It's true. We're family, we're all family." After saying that, he gave Leng Shiqi a meaningful look. Leng Shiqi understood and bowed to Wu Xiang. Disciple greets master. The word, master, was not to be used casually. Seeing Leng Shiqi really bowing, the 2 elders were skeptical. Wu Xiang quickly said, "Senior Red Lotus, please retract your technique. Why don't we sit down and talk?" The old woman hesitated. "All right, this kid is very strong. He's not weaker than those who just entered the heaven origin stage. He's qualified." Then she retracted her hand seal and the terrifying blood lotus slowly dissipated. Leng Shiqi also retracted his Vairocana dragon flame palm. Soon, the 4 of them gathered in the thatched hut in the valley. The 2 elders sat on one side, Leng Shiqi sat opposite them, and Wu Xiang sat on the other side. Red Lotus looked unhappy and did not seem to want to talk. The elder called Qingzhu coughed and said, "Little friend Lu, I'll be frank. Why did you come to the Spirit Sealing Valley?" "I've said it from the beginning. I want to be neighbors with the 2 elders." Leng Shiqi had his eyes on the Spirit Sealing Valley. He wanted to build the Western Baron Royal residence here, so he would definitely offend the 2 heaven origin stage cultivators. Originally, he wanted to use his strength and identity to intimidate them. He was not bragging. If he used his full strength, he might not be able to kill them, but he would definitely win. Now that Formless had interfered, and from the looks of it, they seemed to have some sort of relationship, things would be easier to handle. Leng Shiqi also changed his mind slightly. "Neighbor?" Qingzhu was puzzled. "You mean you've taken a fancy to the Spirit Sealing Wonderland?" "That's right. I want to build the Western Baron Royal residence here." Leng Shiqi told them his plan and identity. The 2 elders had been through a lot, but they were still shocked when they heard Leng Shiqi's identity. "You're one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards of the Thunder Fire Dynasty, and a prince with a different surname?" Although they were rogue cultivators and didn't know much about the outside world, they were still able to recognize their identities. Leng Shiqi's current status was enough for him to look down on the Thunder Flame Dynasty. Even in the eyes of the Heaven Origin region, he was not someone to be trifled with. What's more, Leng Shiqi's strength was extraordinary. Vaguely, he made the 2 elders feel a trace of fear. Of course, it was only a sliver. No matter how great the officials of the Thunderfire dynasty were, they could not control them. The old woman immediately said with displeasure, "The two of us are used to living in this Sealing Spirit Bizarre Valley. We can't let you build a mansion here, let alone leave. Leave quickly. I won't hold it against you for little Chu's sake." Leng Shiqi's heart flashed coldly. When they fought just now, he could almost feel that this old woman's strength was slightly weaker than Zhong Zhenliang's group. On the other hand, the green bamboo elder didn't make a move, which made him a little confused. At this time, Wu transmitted his voice. "Disciple, this red lotus was from the Blood Lotus demonic sect in the Six-Path Demon realm. That green bamboo is a rogue cultivator. They are both at the Heaven Origin middle stage. When I was at the Unity of World stage, I also went into seclusion here for a period of time. Don't be fooled by Red Lotus's poisonous mouth. She's cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Thanks to the two elders' help and guidance, I was able to break through to the Heaven Origin stage. However, it won't be easy for you to build a mansion here because they have no desires. No matter if you threaten or bribe them, it won't work. So that's how it is." No wonder Wu Xiang was at the Heaven Origin stage and still called the two elders. At the time, Leng Shiqi felt it was a bit strange and thought that Wu Xiang had a close relationship with them. However, he still didn't believe that people would have no desires. The reason why they acted like this was because there was nothing worth drawing out their desires. Then Leng Shiqi took out a stone. It looked like a very ordinary stone. However, when he put the stone on the table, green bamboo, red lotus, and Wu Xiang all stared at the stone. In fact, it was just an ordinary stone. However, Leng Shiqi had attached a trace of the law of earth to it. Hiss, the aura of the law of heaven and earth. Red Lotus gasped. She didn't hide her emotions and exclaimed. Qing Zhu stood up, and a hint of excitement appeared on her face. As for Wu Xiang, his eyes moved back and forth between the stone and Leng Shiqi. No one knew what he was thinking. Leng Shiqi picked up the stone and said, "Elders, I don't need to explain the use and value of this stone. I'm willing to exchange it for the Spirit Sealing Valley. What do you think?" There weren't many Heaven Origin stage cultivators on the Falling Star continent. There were only a few hundred of them. Among them, only a very small number of people were passionate about pursuing power. What the rest of the people wanted the most was power. Every Heaven Origin stage cultivator wanted to find a way to break through to Tongshan stage. In other words, they wanted to understand the law of heaven and earth. However, there were very few people who could succeed. Most people didn't even have a clue when they reached the end of their lifespan. The stone in Leng Shiqi's hand was like a lighthouse, a shortcut. Even if they didn't cultivate the law of earth, they could at least understand the law of heaven and earth. This was a huge step forward for them. How could the two elders not be moved? Green Bamboo looked at Leng Shiqi and said, "Young man, you haven't reached Heaven Origin stage yet. Perhaps you don't know the true value of this stone. Are you really willing to exchange it for the Spirit Sealing Valley? Although the Spirit Sealing Valley is full of spiritual energy, there are a few places in the West Baron Prefecture that aren't much worse than here. With your status, you can easily get it. You better think it through." This junior has already thought it through. I just don't know what the two seniors mean. The two old men looked at each other. The spiritual energy in the Sealing Spirit Wondrous Valley was of no use to them. They were only used to living here because they found it pleasing to the eye. However, the stone that Leng Shiqi took out was a hope for them. A hope to break through to Tongshan stage. Who was more important and who was more important? Red Lotus nodded and said, "I didn't expect you to take out such a treasure. A small Spirit Sealing Valley can't compare to this. This old woman will take it away. I owe you a favor." With that, she waved her hand and put away the stone. Then she left with Green Bamboo. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but be stunned. This Red Lotus was really straightforward. Not only did he exchange a stone for the Spirit Sealing Valley, he also earned a favor from a Heaven Origin stage cultivator. This was a good deal. Then he gave the order and many spirit cultivators began to prepare to build the king's mansion. Wu Xiang's expression was solemn as he said, "Disciple, you've made things very difficult for me this time." Chapter 8:11. Leng Shiqi knew that Wu Xiang was not talking about the Sealing Spirit Strange Valley, but the Blood Cloth Pavilion. He could guess that the Blood Cloth Pavilion was dissatisfied with him. "Disciple, I have no other intentions this time. I just want to ask you on behalf of the sect. What are your plans?" Wu Xiang went straight to the point and asked without beating around the bush. "Master, you should know me. No matter what I do, I have my own ideas," Leng Shiqi explained. There are 3 reasons why I chose to leave the imperial capital this time. First, I am too famous in the Dark Thunder Guards and even in the imperial capital. I don't know how many people already dislike me. This is not what worries me the most. More importantly, Lei Haoyan is starting to be wary of me. If I continue to stay in the imperial capital, I will only fall into endless power struggles. Although I am not afraid, it will only delay my cultivation. It would be better to withdraw in time and nurture his own forces here. Second, I left a foundation in the Western Desolate Province, and there are many disciples of the Bloodcloth Pavilion here. Now that I am back, the Sealing Spirit Strange Valley is in the northern county. We can cultivate the disciples of the Bloodcloth Pavilion here and turn the Sealing Spirit Strange Valley into another Bloodcloth Pavilion. This is equivalent to leaving a way out for the sect. Even if the Blood Seed plan fails in the end, it will not be completely destroyed. At least there will still be a spark. As for the third, I am just a chess piece in the Blood Seed plan. The others have not grown up yet, so there is no need to rush. After he finished speaking, Wuxiang fell into deep thought. The reason Leng Shiqi did this was, of course, not as good as he said. He was doing this for himself. This Feng Ling Chi Valley was in the North County. He still had the title of North County's Great Supervisor. In the future, he planned to move the Dark Thunder Guards of the North County to the Western Wasteland King's Mansion and slowly run the King's Mansion. It might even become a force not weaker than the Bloodcloth Pavilion. Of course, that was in the future. Now that everything had settled down, he could do the thing he had been preparing for a long time. Even if these words can convince me, they might not be able to convince the pavilion master and the others. Master advises you to be more careful. Wuxiang was silent for a while before he said with some worry. He knew very well that Leng Shiqi's words were mostly empty words. If he went back with these words, the higher-ups of the Blood Garment Pavilion would not be satisfied. Don't worry, I know what to do. Forget it, forget it. I know you're a person with a sense of propriety. I'll go back and report. After sending Wuxiang away, Leng Shiqi began to build the palace. In addition to the people he brought, Yu Ruifeng, the inspector of the Western Baron Prefecture, also sent a large number of people over. It had only been 10 days or so, but a magnificent mansion had already begun to take shape. Furthermore, the Leng Shiqi had also sent out invitations, inviting all the powers in the West Desolation Province, including the Azure Thunder Army, the various cities, high officials and nobles, the Dark Thunder Guards, the Discipline Division and various large and small spirit cultivator sects to be guests at the West Desolation Palace in a month's time. In fact, there was no need for him to invite them. There were countless people who wanted to visit him. When the Leng Shiqi was about to occupy the West Desolation Province, many people gathered in the West Desolation City to pay a visit to this prince with a different surname. But who would have thought that he did not go to the West Desolation City at all, but came to the Northern County's Spirit Sealing Wonderland Valley? The news that there were 2 Sky Origin stage experts living in seclusion here was not a big secret. Anyone with some intelligence channels knew about it. At first, they were very puzzled as to why Leng Shiqi would come here. The result shocked them greatly. Leng Shiqi had built a mansion in the Spirit Sealing Wonderland Valley. Building a mansion was not a rare thing, but the key was, where were the 2 Sky Origin stage experts? They were living in seclusion here, so how could they easily change places? But Leng Shiqi could occupy the Spirit Sealing Wonderland Valley and invite guests, which meant that he had already dealt with the 2 Sky Origin stage experts. No matter what method he used, just this matter alone was enough to shock many people. A month later, the West Desolation King's Mansion was officially built. The main style was majestic. Due to the lack of time, some details could not be filled in and could only be added slowly in the future. Leng Shiqi also brought a few array masters from the imperial capital. They had already set up a few arrays in several important places in the mansion. As for those large-scale and high-level arrays, they could not be set up in a short period of time. Right now they were barely enough. On this day, spirit cultivators from all over the world gathered in the Spirit Sealing Wonderland Valley. One by one, people with prominent identities arrived. The leaders of the few first-rate sects in the West Desolation Province were all present. Not a single city lord was missing. These people knew each other and naturally chatted with each other. The entire mansion was bustling with noise and excitement. At this time, someone shouted from outside, "Let's welcome the Azure Thunder Army's commander, Xiaoba." Xiaoba. Hearing this name, everyone in the prince's mansion was stunned. The West Desolation Province was the western border of the Thunderblaze dynasty. The Azure Thunder Army was stationed here to guard the border. This was one of the trump cards of the Thunderblaze dynasty. Their commander, Xiaoba, was an expert at the peak of the Sky Origin realm. He had been overseeing the West Desolation province for over 100 years and no one dared to offend him. Therefore, Xiaoba had never left the border and had never participated in any grand events. But today he actually personally came to the West Desolation King's mansion. Everyone looked in the direction of the gate, wanting to meet this legendary marshal. They saw a tall man dressed in tattered beast skin. His entire body exuded a wild aura as he walked over. In his hand was a jug of strong wine. Before he even got close, they could already smell the strong smell of wine. Leng Shiqi went up to welcome such an important person. "Commander Xiahou, it's an honor to meet you." Xiaoba raised his head and gulped down a large mouthful of wine. "All right, let's skip the formalities. I have other matters to discuss with you today. But since I'm here, I will abide by the rules. You go ahead and do what you need to do. We'll catch up after you're done." Leng Shiqi could not figure out Xiaoba's thoughts. But since he came to the West Desolation province, he would have to deal with him sooner or later. Commander Xiahou is indeed straightforward. Please come in. Then he immediately sent people to gather all the information about Xiaoba. When almost everyone had arrived, he walked up to the high platform in the middle of the mansion. All the spirit cultivators in the mansion immediately quieted down. Leng Shiqi looked up and saw that there were over 10,000 people in the crowd. Among them there were many powerful and prominent people. Rinyi took out the imperial edict and read it again. Then, whether it was the commander of the Scarlet Thunder Army, Xiaoba, or someone from a third-rate sect, they all cupped their hands and shouted in unison, "Greetings, Your Highness." Chapter 8:12. Leng Shiqi stretched out his hands and said indifferently, "Everyone is a guest from afar, please take a seat." Everyone immediately sat down. Of course, not everyone had the qualifications to sit down. In fact, 70% of the spirit cultivators were still standing. They also wanted to know what Leng Shiqi wanted to do. He was the king of the Western Desolation, so it was normal for everyone to visit him. However, it was rare for Leng Shiqi to make such a big fuss. Now that the king's mansion had not been completed, he must have some plans for gathering everyone in such a hurry. In private, everyone was secretly guessing Leng Shiqi's purpose, but they were not certain. Leng Shiqi paused for a moment and said, "Today I have invited everyone here to announce one thing." Everyone held their breaths, wanting to know what he would announce. "From today onwards, I am the king of the Western Desolation province." Hearing this, most people were puzzled. Leng Shiqi was originally the king of the Western Desolation. Didn't he just announce the imperial edict? But the more everyone thought about it, the more they felt that there was something wrong with this sentence. Then many people immediately shivered. Leng Shiqi said to become the king of the Western Desolation province, not the king of the Western Desolation. King of the Western Desolation, this was an extremely high status. There were not many people in the world who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. But then again, the status of the prince was high, but he did not have any real power. You could have the power to cultivate your own power, but you could not command the big shots in the Western Desolation province. For example, Xiaoba, the Dark Thunder Guards, and the people in charge of the Discipline Division. And Leng Shiqi's words just now were to completely control the entire Western Desolation province. If it was just his own thoughts, then so be it. Who would be so ambitious? He actually dared to say such words in front of all the influential people in the West Desolate Prefecture. He was not afraid of provoking public anger, not afraid of being condemned in speech and writing, not afraid of being punished by His Majesty. Even if Leng Shiqi was also one of the 4 directors of the Dark Thunder Guards, he was in charge of the eastern 9 counties, and his hands could not reach the Western Desolation province. How audacious of him. The commander of the Azure Thunder Army, Xiaoba, was sitting right there. If he angered Leng Shiqi, he would not be kind to Leng Shiqi. Everyone quietly glanced at Xiaoba. Everyone knew that this person had a fiery temper. How could he be as insolent as Leng Shiqi? However, they saw that Xiaoba was drinking as if nothing had happened, as if he had not heard Leng Shiqi's words at all. Everyone was dumbfounded. He even thought that he had seen wrongly. This is Xiaoba? Leng Shiqi was also secretly observing Xiaoba. Among the people present, only Xiaoba was worthy of his attention. Xiaoba's reaction was beyond Leng Shiqi's expectations. The more Xiaoba reacted this way, the more suspicious Leng Shiqi became. He wondered what Xiaoba's purpose in coming to Spirit Sealing Bizarre Valley was. Xiaoba was the strongest and had the highest status among all of them. Now that he pretended not to hear, who would say something? At this time Yu Ruifeng, the inspector of the Dark Thunder Guards of the Western Wilderness Prefecture, stood up. The others thought that he would refute, but who would have thought that he would say, "Your Highness has been appointed to the Western Wilderness Prefecture. Naturally you have to take over everything here. I don't care about others, but everyone in the Dark Thunder Guards of the Western Wilderness Prefecture is at your disposal." As early as a month ago, Eunuch Gao had already contacted Yu Ruifeng. He only told him that seeing Leng Shiqi was like seeing Eunuch Gao himself. No matter what Leng Shiqi did, he had to obey him. As soon as he said this, everyone was shocked. Yu Ruifeng's decision made everyone feel like they had betrayed him. At this time they realized that something was wrong. Just now they subconsciously thought that no one here would yield to Leng Shiqi. There were even a few masters of the oneness of heaven and men realm who were eager to make a move. However, the situation did not develop in the direction they expected. First, Xiaoba did not care. Then Yu Ruifeng surrendered. The rest of the people suddenly felt like they were scattered sand. Then, the major sects, families and city lords of the northern county all stood up and said, "We are willing to follow your highness." The others could not help but widen their eyes. If the word "follow" spread to the imperial capital, it would be a serious crime. This could not be blamed. The main reason was that Leng Shiqi's influence in the northern county was too great, or it could be said that it was too terrifying. Last time, when Leng Shiqi came to welcome the envoy, he had already bribed the major forces in the northern county. Now it came in handy. The only ones who did not speak were the Discipline Commission and the forces of the eastern, western, and southern counties. Until now they still couldn't understand. Were those people who defected all crazy? When the people in the imperial capital and His Majesty knew about this, they would definitely be furious. At that time, all those who surrendered would not have a good ending. When Leng Shiqi saw that these people were still hesitating, his face immediately turned cold. "I advise everyone to be more open-minded. You won't be at a disadvantage if you follow me. Otherwise, I'm afraid that this western desolate province will become a bloodbath. Unfortunately, I don't know how long it will take for the Western Wilderness County to return to its current prosperity." When everyone heard this, their hearts skipped a beat. Leng Shiqi dared to threaten them so blatantly. He really did not care about them, nor did he care about His Majesty. The king of the Western Wilderness is so powerful. Just when everyone did not know what to do, a figure broke through the air and said sarcastically, "Who is that? He must be an expert of the sky origin stage. I have some impression. He seems to be an expert of the Liuhe spiritual region. Why is someone from the Liuhe spiritual region here?" When Leng Shiqi saw the person, he narrowed his eyes and recognized him. This person was Elder Xiao, who had brought the disciples of the Liuhe spiritual region to the Blood Cloak Pavilion to participate in the gambling match. What was he doing here? "It's only been a few years since we parted. I didn't expect you to be so famous. I wonder if the king of the Western Wilderness still recognizes me?" Elder Xiao asked with a cold smile. In the eyes of others, Elder Xiao seemed to be an old friend of Leng Shiqi. However, these words were undoubtedly a threat to Leng Shiqi. In the world, the only people who knew his true identity, other than the Blood Cloak Pavilion, were those who had participated in the gambling match. However, Leng Shiqi's appearance had changed greatly after the gambling match. He even hid his identity and joined the Dark Thunder Guards. How did Elder Xiao know that he was the king of the Western Wilderness? Leng Shiqi immediately thought of a possibility, and it was very likely. This news was leaked by the Blood Cloak Pavilion. When Six Direction Spirit Sovereign broke into the palace, Leng Shiqi had delayed him for a short period of time. Presumably, Six Direction Spirit Sovereign had already held a grudge against him. The Blood Cloak Pavilion leaked his identity to the Six Direction Spirit region because they wanted to use the Six Direction Spirit region to threaten him. Leng Shiqi thought to himself, "It seems that the words that Master brought back are useless." However, the Blood Cloak Pavilion is really bold. Aren't they afraid that the people of the Six Direction Spirit region will really expose my identity? The Six Direction Spirit region and the Blood Cloak Pavilion had secretly reached some kind of agreement. Therefore, it was almost impossible for the Six Direction Spirit region to expose Leng Shiqi's identity. However, they could use this information to threaten and control Leng Shiqi. Seeing that Leng Shiqi did not speak, Elder Xiao snorted coldly and said, "We haven't seen each other for a long time. What should I call you now? The king of the Western Wilderness, Lu Xingji, or Leng Shiqi?" The crowd immediately buzzed with discussion. If Elder Xiao was not speaking without thinking, then the king of the Western Wilderness's identity did not seem to be that simple. Leng Shiqi turned his head, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The crowd instantly fell silent. He suddenly smiled brightly and said, "Very well, this king wants to announce the second thing. From today onwards, my name is Leng Shiqi." Chapter 8:13. Inside the king's mansion, whether it was Leng Shiqi's subordinates or anyone else, they were all stunned. Elder Shao of the Six Direction spiritual region was the same. Other than Elder Shao, everyone else was baffled. The king of the Western Wilderness, one of the four chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards, had changed his name in front of so many people? Wasn't this too much of a joke? Of course, they soon realized that Elder Shao had suddenly appeared here and made the king of the Western Wilderness change his name without saying a word. There must be something fishy going on. Xiahou Ba put down the wine jar and looked at Leng Shiqi for a while before continuing to drink. Elder Shao, who was still flying in the air, opened his mouth. He had a lot of words that he wanted to say, but they were forcefully swallowed back. He thought that Leng Shiqi might change the topic shamelessly, or directly attack him. But he never thought that Leng Shiqi would admit it in front of him. No, he didn't seem to admit anything. He only said that he changed his name. Although many people would be suspicious if he changed his name, it was much better than being pestered by the Six Direction spiritual region. At this moment, Elder Shao had to admit that Leng Shiqi was very shrewd, and could also be said to be treacherous. He knew how to use the best method to solve problems. He simply changed his name in front of everyone, and it could be said that the Six Direction spiritual region had something on him. This was because Elder Shao knew very well that he couldn't expose Leng Shiqi's identity. Therefore, Elder Shao felt a little embarrassed. His purpose was to beat Leng Shiqi and gain some benefits, but now he had no reason to do so. What should he do next? Leng Shiqi raised his head and smiled. "Elder Shao is a guest from afar. Why don't we have a few drinks and catch up?" Elder Shao said with a gloomy expression. "Leng Shiqi, don't think you can get away with it." "Elder Shao, I'm afraid you'll return empty-handed this time." "What a pity." Leng Shiqi didn't give the other party any face. Elder Shao had a good temper, but at this moment he still wanted to kill Leng Shiqi. In the end he held back. Leng Shiqi was the key to the Blood Garment Pavilion's Blood Seed plan. Before the relationship between the Six Unity Spiritual Realm and the Blood Garment Pavilion broke off, he could not touch Leng Shiqi. However, he could avoid the death penalty, but he couldn't escape punishment. Elder Shao took a step forward and a figure appeared behind him. That figure was like an ancient god, tearing apart the sky with its hands and crushing the earth with its feet. When it landed, the sky was filled with flashing lights. Everyone in the Wang mansion had no choice but to close their eyes. Even so, they still felt like they were being pierced by thousands of swords. Rinyi made a quick decision and activated the array in the palace. However, the array was newly built. How could it withstand the power of the Sky Origin stage? Even the slightest ripple was enough to shatter all the arrays in an instant. Leng Shiqi snorted in his heart. Elder Shao should not have made a move in front of everyone because it would leave an impression of arrogance in everyone's hearts. These people were all well-known figures in the Western Wilderness Prefecture. Even if their strength was far inferior to the Six Unity Spiritual Realm, the Six Unity Spiritual Realm's reputation in the Western Wilderness Prefecture would be ruined. Leng Shiqi spread the Star Moon wings on his back and soared into the sky. 4 arms grew out of his back and formed a seal at the same time. Immediately the wind and clouds surged, huge waves surged, raging flames surged, and the earth shook. The wind tiger tore open the sky, the water dragon soared into the sky, the fire phoenix spread its wings and circled, and the black tortoise broke out of the ground. Leng Shiqi formed a series of seals one after another. Suddenly, there was a mysterious rhythm between heaven and earth, and the origin energy of heaven and earth boiled. Then, the wind tiger, the water dragon, the fire phoenix, and the black tortoise gathered together, forming a formation that covered the sky. The Four Spirits Formation. As soon as the Four Spirits Formation appeared, the origin energy of heaven and earth within a radius of hundreds of miles was instantly absorbed. Traces of an even more mysterious aura filled the air. That was the power of law. The Four Spirits Formation slowly pressed down. Before Elder Shao could retract his shocked expression, the figure behind him had already dimmed a little. The divine light that filled the sky was completely extinguished, and not a single bit was left. "This is impossible." Elder Shao shouted in horror. "How can you, who is in the unity of heaven and man realm, control such a powerful force?" He did not dare to believe it because the power of the Four Spirits Formation had exceeded the range of what he could bear. In other words, Leng Shiqi was even stronger than him. He was an expert in the Sky Origin stage. Although he was only in the early stage of the Sky Origin stage, he was still in the Sky Origin stage. However, at this moment, Elder Shao was helpless against the Four Spirits formation. The result he was about to see was defeat. Elder Shao naturally could not wait for death. He reached out and clenched his fist. Endless divine light burst out in the air, and a divine eye vaguely appeared. A ray of green light shot out from the divine eye. The green light looked very ordinary, but it contained an extremely terrifying amount of heaven and earth origin energy. The green light collided with the Four Spirits formation, and a sudden sound came from the sky. Everyone only saw the Four Spirits formation shake violently, but the green light disappeared without a trace. Elder Shao's face was a little red. That was his last spiritual skill. Unless he burned his blood essence again, he would not be able to use any more power. He could also see that if he burned his blood essence, he still had some confidence in blocking the Four Spirits formation. Facing a junior in the unity of heaven and man realm, he had to burn his blood essence to barely block a blow. From now on, Elder Shao, would lose all face. How would he face others in the future? There were many experts among the spirit cultivators below. They could all see that Elder Shao was in a great disadvantage. Leng Shiqi's strength had completely exceeded their imagination. He said that he wanted to be the king of the Western Desolate Province, so he did have the confidence. At this time, Leng Shiqi's forearms paused. The Four Spirits formation that suppressed all things dissipated in the blink of an eye. He was not prepared to continue attacking, because he had already achieved what he wanted. Elder Shao's expression froze, and then his chest felt as if there was a big rock pressing down on it. Even though he did not have to worry about how to block the Four Spirits formation, Leng Shiqi's actions were like telling the world that he had spared Elder Shao. A unity of heaven and man realm spared a Sky Origin realm. Elder Shao held back a mouthful of blood and almost spat it out. This was not even as good as losing a battle. He could foresee that no matter where he went in the future, people would think of the humiliation of being spared by a unity of heaven and man realm cultivator. This would be a stain on his life, a shame for the rest of his life. Since Elder Shao is not willing to come and drink a few cups, then I won't send you off. Please go back and help this king pass a message. Don't use this little trick anymore, it's embarrassing. Leng Shiqi continued to stab. Elder Shao, who had a good temper, was so angry that smoke was coming out of his 7 orifices. Good. He was so angry that he said 3 good words in a row. The king of the Western Desolate Province is so capable and awe-inspiring. My Lioha spirit region will remember today's matter. Goodbye. After leaving behind a ruthless sentence, Elder Shao turned around and left, leaving behind many spirit cultivators who were still in a state of shock. Chapter 8:14. Even after Elder Shao had completely disappeared, the spirit cultivators in the palace still hadn't recovered. Leng Shiqi had actually defeated Elder Shao of the 6th Direction spiritual region. If it was in other realms, it wasn't particularly rare for the weak to defeat the strong, especially those spirit cultivators from the large sects who could occasionally do it. But that was the Sky Origin realm. It was a powerful existence that had already surpassed the 4 realms of heaven. How could this realm be crossed just because one wanted to? Moreover, Elder Shao was not a rogue cultivator. He was an expert from the 4 sacred spiritual regions. Whether it was his strength or cultivation method, he was naturally the best. Even so, he was still defeated by Leng Shiqi in one move. Just how strong was Leng Shiqi? Many people couldn't help but gasp. The only person present who was still clear-headed was the commander of the Azure Thunder Army, Xiahou Ba. At this moment he was staring at Leng Shiqi with burning eyes, wishing that he could see through him. Everyone, there was an outsider who disturbed us just now. Now I will give you one more chance. If you miss it, you will really miss it. Leng Shiqi's cold voice spread to every corner of the palace, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Immediately, 30 to 40% of the people knelt down to express their submission. In addition to those who had already submitted, the number of people who were willing to recognize Leng Shiqi as their king was now as high as 80%. The remaining 20% were people from a few first-rate sects and the Discipline Commission. The Discipline Commission was difficult to make. They were originally here to suppress the various spirit cultivators in the Western Desolate Province. If they all submitted to Leng Shiqi, then was there still a need for the Discipline Commission to exist? However, Leng Shiqi's ferocity was too strong. Not only was his strength extraordinary, but he also seemed to be somewhat disregarding the reaction of the imperial capital. It seemed that he had something to rely on, so the Discipline Commission also had the intention to bow their heads, but they really couldn't open their mouths. Leng Shiqi swept his gaze around and found a familiar face in the crowd of the Discipline Commission. He said, "Brother Wang, we haven't seen each other for a few years. I wonder if you still remember that you once owed me a favor." The person he was talking about was the Grand Commissioner of the Discipline Commission, Wang Tai. Leng Shiqi had spoken up for King Tai during the Monster Extermination Conference in the Wind and Thunder Watchtower, which earned him a favor. King Tai was called out. He looked at Leng Shiqi, who was standing high above, and felt a little absent-minded. When they were in the Wind and Thunder Tower, Wang Tai was in the Gang Spirit Realm, and Leng Shiqi was in the Spiritual Aperture Realm. However, he was still in the Gang Spirit Realm, while Leng Shiqi had already reached the Oneness of Heaven and Men Realm. A Sky Origin Stage Cultivator who could defeat a Sky Origin Stage Cultivator. He smiled bitterly and said, "I didn't expect your highness to still remember me. My cultivation is low and my words carry little weight. I don't know how to repay this favor. You should know very well what I want," Leng Shiqi said with a smile. King Tai's expression became even more bitter. He naturally knew that Leng Shiqi wanted him to persuade the people of the Discipline Commission to lower their heads, but he was not the person in charge of the Discipline Commission in the Western Wilderness Commandery, so he could not make the decision. He turned his head and glanced at Chao Qingyuan, the Discipline Commissioner beside him. Chao Qingyuan did not say anything but gave him a look. King Tai immediately understood that Chao Qingyuan had already prepared to lower his head. At this moment he only needed a way out, and King Tai was the way out. He spoke in a low voice, but the people around could hear him clearly. "Lord Chao, I have an old friendship with His Highness, and he never does anything unprepared. Besides, everyone has seen his strength. We have no room to resist. As the saying goes, a fine bird chooses a tree to nest in. We'd better." King Tai shut his mouth after he finished speaking. Instead, he transmitted his voice, "My lord, let's lower our heads for the time being and muddle our way through. I believe that the imperial capital will make a move soon. So, even if something happens, it won't be our fault." Chao Qingyuan pretended to ponder, then half knelt on the ground and lowered his head deeply. The Discipline Suppression Commission had also submitted. Now, only a few first-class sects had not made a choice. Seeing that the Discipline Commission, which had been suppressing them, had surrendered, they felt a little better. "We are willing to obey your highness." In the end, the people of those sects had no choice but to make a decision. At this moment, a large number of people in the prince's mansion had knelt down, which meant that the situation in the Western Desolation Prefecture had completely changed. "Very good. I've prepared songs and dances for everyone. Drink to your heart's content and don't stop until you're drunk." Leng Shiqi clapped his hands and immediately beautiful music started to play. Rows of beautiful female dancers started to dance gracefully, and the prince's mansion was instantly filled with singing and dancing. Xiahou Ba stretched his body and stood up. "I'm tired of drinking this jar of wine. It's tasteless. I wonder if your highness has been here for a long time." Leng Shiqi's nose twitched. The smell of this jar of wine was very strong. Even he, who was in the unity of heaven and man realm, felt the smell of wine assailed his nostrils. He knew that Xiahou Ba was not here for the wine, but for the purpose of his visit. Although the prince's mansion has just been built, it still has good wine. "Brother Xiahou, please follow me." Leng Shiqi led Xiahou Ba to the main hall of the prince's mansion. "Brother Xiahou, please take a seat." "Yilu. Should I call you Lu Xingji or Leng Shiqi?" "Since I've said it in front of everyone, you can call me Leng Shiqi." He did not care that Xiahou Ba suddenly called him by his name. Xiahou Ba leaned back in his chair and said casually, "Well, Leng Shiqi, oh Leng Shiqi, I've heard of you by chance. It's better to meet you in person than to hear about you. Let's not talk about other things first. Your current strength is probably comparable to the middle stage of the Sky Origin realm. I admire you. It just so happens that I have a tricky problem in my hands. I need your highness's help." Finally he got to the point. Leng Shiqi looked puzzled. "I'm still a junior in front of Brother Xiahou. If you have any orders, just say it. I'll do it as long as I can." Today Xiahou Ba had given Leng Shiqi enough face from the beginning. Naturally he would not be careless. The reason why he dared to agree was that he had his considerations. The most important thing was that Xiahou Ba did not know his strength when he came. In other words, Xiahou Ba originally planned to ask Leng Shiqi, who was in the unity of heaven and man stage, for help. Therefore this problem should not be too troublesome. When Xiahou Ba saw that Leng Shiqi agreed so readily, he was first stunned, then he clapped his hands. Haha, Brother Leng is so forthright. You're definitely my friend. In fact, it's not a big problem. It's just that there's something in Beilu country that I've been coveting for a long time. Due to my identity, I can't easily leave the Western Wilderness Prefecture. However, Brother Leng is different. You're the king of the Western Wilderness. You can go to the 6 countries of the Western regions openly. They'll open their doors to welcome you. At this point, Leng Shiqi finally understood that Xiahou Ba wanted to borrow Leng Shiqi's hand to get something from Beilu country. This thing must be extraordinary if it could catch the eye of Xiahou Ba, who was at the peak of the Sky Origin realm. May I ask what that thing is? Xiahou Ba said with a mysterious expression. It's an 8th rank martial art called 3 Talents Control Art. Chapter 8:15. Rank 8 Technique? Leng Shiqi was puzzled. Although rank 8 techniques were rare, they were powerful enough to break through to the Sky Origin realm. However, Xiahou Ba was already at the peak of the Sky Origin realm. Rank 8 techniques should be useless to him. He must be preparing to break through to the Tongshan realm. What he needed should be a rank 9 technique. However, Leng Shiqi thought about it again. Xiahou Ba naturally knew about this. Since he valued the 3 Talents Imperial Technique so much, he must have his own plans. This was not difficult for Leng Shiqi. At most, he could use the name of the King of the West to go to the 6 kingdoms of the West and get the technique. This might attract some suspicion, but so what? Without conclusive evidence, the power of the Beilu Kingdom would not dare to question the King of the Thunderflame dynasty. Before that, he thought it would be better to ask more clearly. Brother Xiahou, can you tell me where the technique is and who has it? Xiahou Ba replied, there is a Huayu building in the Beilu Kingdom. It is a force supported by the Beilu King. Its owner is called the Huayu Heavenly Master. He has a high prestige in that place. The main reason is that the Beilu Kingdom is dry all year round. This Huayu Heavenly Master actually has the ability to summon wind and rain. In fact, some cultivators of the water element also have this ability. However, the water element in that place is very poor and it is not easy to do so. The reason is that this person has cultivated the 3 Talents Imperial Technique. In addition, the people of the Beilu Kingdom are somewhat uncivilized. Many people think that he is some kind of god. The Beilu King will take advantage of the opportunity to build a Huayu building and receive a large number of offerings every year. Alas, if that Huayu Heavenly Master is only a rank 1 rogue cultivator, even if he is from a spirit cultivator sect, I can directly snatch the technique. Unfortunately, he is now relying on the Beilu Kingdom. It is inconvenient for me to make a move. I see that Brother Leng's body contains a domineering force. If you can get the 3 Talents Imperial Technique, I can teach you a fist technique. Before Xiahou Ba finished speaking, his domineering aura suddenly leaked out. A fist intent intimidated the world. He did not move a single step, but there was a terrifying pressure of an overlord descending upon the world. The sky above the Wangfu was suddenly covered in black clouds. Everyone felt as if their chests had been struck by a heavy hammer. Xiahou Ba had used his pair of iron fists to intimidate the 6 nations of the western regions for several decades. His self-created dominating Empyrean fist had killed countless experts. As for Leng Shiqi, as long as he brought the 3 Talents Control Technique, he would be able to learn a fist technique. In particular, the tyrant fist that he had comprehended not long ago coincided with Xiahou Ba's fist intent. It was like someone had sent him a pillow when he was about to doze off. Moreover, he had originally planned to go to the 6 kingdoms of the western region sometime later, so it was just a convenient thing to do. Leng Shiqi agreed without hesitation. I'll take it. However, there are still many things to prepare for in the mansion, so I can't go to Beilu Kingdom for the time being. Therefore, I need Xiahou Ba to wait for a few more days. Don't worry about it. Seeing Leng Shiqi agree, Xiahou Ba immediately laughed heartily. I won't be wrong. Brother Leng must be a man of his words. Then I'll wait for your good news. The Wangfu of the Western Wasteland has just been built and there are still many things to be done. I won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye. Brother Xiahou, please. Leng Shiqi saw Xiahou Ba off. Then he did not see anyone else but went to the specially built secret chamber. He murmured, it's finally time to do that thing. At sunset, the people in the Wangfu of the Western Wasteland had almost all left. After this day, the situation in the Western Wasteland Prefecture had changed. However, some people thought that it would not change for long, because the news that Leng Shiqi wanted to dominate the Western Wasteland Prefecture had quickly spread to the imperial capital. Everyone who received this news could not believe it at first, and then they were furious. Especially those high-ranking courtiers, They were all flustered and exasperated. Soon, they spontaneously entered the palace to report this matter to the emperor. At the entrance of the palace, these people were all talking at once. What a Lu Xingji! He has just arrived in the Western Wasteland Prefecture and he has already made such a big scene. He is really daring. That's why people say that he is young and frivolous. His Majesty was kind enough to give him the title of prince, but he really thinks too highly of himself. I was wondering why he agreed to leave the imperial capital so easily. It turns out that he already had a plan. However, he is still too naive. He wants to turn the Western Wasteland Prefecture into a state within a state. This is a big taboo for His Majesty. That's right. I think Lu Xingji will not be the king of the Western Wasteland for long. Don't call him Lu Xingji. He has already changed his name to Leng Shiqi. The king of the Western Wasteland, one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards, is also a person with a reputation. It is too casual to change his name just like that. I think there is something fishy about this. The Heavenly Origin Stage expert of the 6 Direction spiritual region has appeared. This means that the Leng Shiqi must be related to the 6 Direction spiritual region. Don't forget, the 6 Direction spiritual sovereign once brought people into the imperial palace. Perhaps the Leng Shiqi is their spy. Leng Shiqi? Leng Shiqi. Why does this name sound a little familiar? That's right, isn't there a Leng Shiqi on the Flying Dragon leaderboard? Is it a coincidence or are they the same person? Just as everyone was feeling indignant, the palace doors opened. Mo Xianghua and 2 imperial family elders walked over. The 3 of them were the 3 Yuan pavilion created by the Soul Clone. They held great authority. As soon as the 3 of them appeared, the others immediately shut their mouths. Mo Linhui said with a troubled expression, I know why you're here. The information has already been sent to me. Regardless of whether it's Lu Xingji or Leng Shiqi, the implications of this matter are too great. His Majesty has to step in. Then let's go and meet the Emperor, one of the officials said matter-of-factly. However, Mo Linhui sighed slightly. His Majesty has already gone into seclusion. He will not come out for the time being. Hearing this, all the officials were dumbfounded. His Majesty went into seclusion? What the hell was going on? They had heard of emperors being extravagant and indulging in debauchery. They had heard of emperors who did not do proper work. They had heard of emperors who loved beauties more than their country. However, they had never heard of an emperor going into seclusion. Actually, His Majesty has already gone into seclusion a few days ago. He has also discussed this matter with the 3 Yuan Pavilion. Mo Linhui explained. His Majesty has indeed gone into seclusion because he has something important to deal with. This matter concerns the lifeline of the Thunderfire dynasty. The Soul Clone had indeed gone into seclusion. This way he could delay the Leng Shiqi's actions in the Western Wilderness Prefecture. As time passed, it would naturally be easier to deal with. The reason he could convince the 3 Yuan Pavilion was very simple. His final goal for going into seclusion this time was to set up restrictions on the Thunderfire Pearl again. Previously, when 6 Direction Spirit Sovereign attacked the palace, the Thunderfire dynasty had realized the drawbacks of the Thunderfire Pearl. Before the Soul Clone ascended to the throne, the Shadi ruler had instructed him to improve the restrictions on the Thunderfire Pearl as soon as possible. Ever since the Soul Clone ascended to the throne, he had been preparing for this matter. However, the restrictions on the Thunderfire Pearl itself were already very difficult to come into contact with. To set up the restrictions again required a lot of manpower and resources. Since the ascension to the throne, many formation masters had secretly gathered in the imperial capital. With Zhong Zhenliang and Lan Ruo in the Imperial Hall of Worship as the leaders, they had been preparing in full swing. Until a few days ago, they had finally completed all the preparations and could begin. Only then did the Soul Clone decide to go into seclusion. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. No, it should be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. At this moment, the Soul Clone walked into the Dragon Vein. The place to remove and set up restrictions was here. The Thunderfire Pearl was too important to the Thunderfire dynasty. They had to be careful. However, no one knew that the Soul Clone had more than 1 Thunderfire Pearl. Instead, there were 2. Chapter 8:16. A few months later, Leng Shiqi's West Desolation King's mansion was finally completed. The time was mainly spent on setting up the array and building some secret rooms. He also did 2 things during this time. The first was to reorganize the various powers in the West Desolation province. Although they agreed last time at the king's mansion, they might not be so convinced in their hearts. So Leng Shiqi sent out a few Unity of Heaven realm experts to govern the east, west, south and north counties. At first, some people were still waiting for the reaction from the imperial capital. They felt that Leng Shiqi's good days would not last long. After more than a month, there was still no movement from the imperial capital. Only then did they start to panic and have no choice but to submit. The other thing was that Leng Shiqi used this time to sort out his own spirit cultivation Dao. He had settled in the Unity of Heaven realm for a period of time. It was time to prepare for breaking through to the Sky Origin realm. He vaguely had some clues, but he still needed to slowly explore. Right now there were more important things to do. He had to make a trip to Zhulu country. Leng Shiqi had started to set up a few years ago. Now it was time to reel in the net. Now, he did not need to worry about the affairs of the king's mansion. After arranging everything, he announced that he was in seclusion and no one was to disturb him. As for himself, he quietly crossed the border and entered Zhulu country. In recent years, the biggest change in Zhulu country was the appearance of a special power, Buddhism. This power was clearly very loose. Many people did not need to have any talent to join. There was no lack of experts in the four realms of heaven realm. Those Buddhist disciples were also dressed very strangely. They all had big bald heads and mouthed Amitabha Buddha. They were very recognizable. At first, no one cared about this Buddhist sect. However, the Buddhist sect developed at an unimaginable speed. When people noticed it, they suddenly realized that the Buddhist sect's power was about to spread throughout the entire Zhulu country. In almost any city or town you could see Buddhist disciples. They were still constantly preaching Buddhism. Those uneducated ordinary people could easily become believers. So even though many people were not Buddhist disciples, they were believers of Buddhism. Some spirit cultivation sects gradually realized that something was wrong. Because many talented youths also joined Buddhism, these spirit cultivation sects could not bear it anymore. Thus, all over Zhulu country, there were cases of spirit cultivator sects joining forces to suppress the Buddhist sects. As a result, some Buddhist sect disciples even died. However, they didn't know that they had attracted a terrifying existence, Master Tuding. Zhulu country was not big. After that incident, Master Tu Dang went to visit them one by one. He did not go to reason with them, but instead left behind a 3,000-foot-long bottomless swastika Buddhist seal in front of every spirit cultivator sect. According to the memories of those who had witnessed the scene at that time, there was only the light of Buddha in the whole world at that time. They did not feel any discomfort when they were bathed in the light of Buddha. On the contrary, they felt quite comfortable. However, when the Buddhist light dissipated, they saw the terrifying swastika. There were plenty of Unity of Heaven realm experts in Zhu Road Nation. They believed that even if they were 10 times stronger, they wouldn't be able to create such a big scene. Master Tuding must be at Sky Origin stage. When the news got out, all the sects in the Zhulu country were shocked. This Buddhist sect that came out of nowhere actually had a Sky Origin stage cultivator. Those sects that had killed Buddhist disciples were all trembling in fear. Some sealed their mountains and did not come out. Some went to apologize. After this incident, no one dared to provoke the Buddhist sect anymore. They developed even faster. At this moment, the disguised Leng Shiqi was sitting in a restaurant in a small town, inquiring about the Buddhist sect. He was not sure if Tuding had broken through to Sky Origin stage, but he was sure that Master Tu Dang's strength was definitely above Sky Origin stage. With this trump card in hand, Leng Shiqi had a bit more confidence in the matter of Zhulu country. However, he did not come to this town to find Tuding, but to find another person, Princess Ka Luo. Princess Ka Luo had established a force called 10,000 Gu Cave not far away. It had grown quite well in the past 2 years and was already a second-rate sect. He had wanted to find them directly, but unexpectedly, 10,000 Gu Cave had a conflict with another sect, Heavenly Silkworm Palace. These two forces both cultivated Gu techniques, and Zhulu country was so small, there were not many places suitable for cultivating Gu worms. The two sides had already had several conflicts over some resources. In the end, they decided to have a fight in the town, and the loser would have to leave 100 miles away. Because of this, many people came to the town to watch the show. The fight was 3 days later, and the experts of 10,000 Gu Cave had already arrived in the town. Unfortunately, they did not see Princess Ka Luo. Leng Shiqi did not bother to look for her carefully. As long as he waited for a day or two, she would naturally appear. At night, Leng Shiqi sat quietly in a room of an inn. He opened his supercilious eyes and observed everything in the town. Soon he found Princess Ka Luo's spiritual aura. To Leng Shiqi's surprise, Princess Ka Luo's cultivation was at Spirit Gang Realm Level 4. This cultivation speed was almost the same as Yushu and Meng Ming. It seems that Gu techniques are really suitable for her. I underestimated her talent before, Leng Shiqi thought to himself. Suddenly he seemed to think of something which made his expression change. A trace of interest flashed in his eyes, and then he disappeared from the room like a ghost. On the other side, Princess Kaluo, who was now known as Lady Gu, quietly walked into the town with a person. They carefully turned left and right and came to a remote small house. In front of the house, the person behind her knocked on the door rhythmically, and then a sneaky person led them in. After closing the door, the person smiled and said, "Lady Gu is willing to give me face, what an honor. Brother Warren, you are an elder of Celestial Silkworm Palace. It should be my honor that you are willing to see me." Princess Kaluo said with a fake smile. Lady Gu is really good with words. I can't come out for too long, so let's keep it short. This is the information on the participants of our Heavenly Silkworm Hall, including their cultivation methods, spirit techniques, and some of their weaknesses. It turned out that Warren was actually betraying his own sect here. Princess Kaluo was delighted. As long as she had this information, she would definitely win this fight. She reached out to take the information, but a voice sounded, "Princess Kaluo, I don't think you need to use this method." Who is it? Princess Kaluo was shocked, but she suddenly found that the two people beside her were motionless like statues. When she looked again, there was no trace of life in their eyes. Chapter 8:17. Princess Carol was shocked. The two people beside her were both in the spirit astral realm, but they were killed without a sound. Just how powerful was that person? But that voice sounded familiar. Leng Shiqi appeared with a smile. "Princess Carol, I'm here again." "So it's you." Princess Carol looked at him with a complicated expression. "What do you want this time?" Leng Shiqi shrugged. "That matter can begin." Hearing this, Princess Carol trembled. She abruptly raised her head and glared at Leng Shiqi with eyes filled with hatred. Ever since her father's death, she had been living in hatred every single day. Over the past few years, she had been enduring humiliation, hiding her identity to run her own forces, and cultivating with all her might. What was she doing this for? It was so that she could one day take back the throne that belonged to her. It could be said that this was the belief that she had persisted until now. Now that Leng Shiqi told her that she could begin, Princess Carol's heart was filled with boundless flames of revenge. She gritted her teeth. What should I do? Princess Carol was very clear about her own ability and the power in her hands. Although it was already a miracle that she could create a second-rate sect in a few years, it was still far from enough to fight against King Gus. And Leng Shiqi was her only hope. "Princess Carol, how are the arrangements for the 10,000 Gu cave and the royal family's relatives?" Leng Shiqi asked first. These people were not the main force, but they were the foundation and power on the surface. Princess Kaluo said, "Currently, there are already over 100 spirit cultivators in the 10,000 Gu cave, and as for the clan, we have contacted more than 10 of them. They all have an extremely good relationship with my royal father, and are willing to stand on my side during the uprising." Leng Shiqi nodded. There were many disciples in the 10,000 Gu cave, but there weren't many in the four realms of heaven and man. Fortunately, he didn't count on them. He was only using 10,000 Gu cave to plant his own people inside. Otherwise, he would be interfering with Zhu Lu's royal family as an outsider. In that case, the Imperial Consecration Hall would not sit idly by. The clans that Princess Carol had convinced were also very important. That would give her a legitimate reason to ascend the throne in the future, and there wouldn't be any evidence left behind. "When are you going to make your move?" Princess Carol asked in a low voice. It was clear that she was somewhat impatient. "Of course, I have to be fully prepared. It will take time for my men to gather here. I can take advantage of this time to settle all your matters. For example, your strength and the conflict with the Heavenly Silkworm Hall. There's no need to care about Heavenly Silkworm Palace, it doesn't matter anymore." "That's not true." Leng Shiqi chuckled. "Princess Carol, there's no need to be in such a hurry. I'll help you build momentum before we start. At the very least, I'll let everyone know who you are and how talented and strong you are. This will accumulate a lot of prestige for you. You may not know the benefits of these things now, but you will in the future." Princess Carol took a deep breath and said, "You're right. I'm too impatient. I'll listen to your arrangements." Leng Shiqi was a little surprised that she was so obedient. In his impression, Princess Carol had never been so easily persuaded. Perhaps this was growing up. In this case, Leng Shiqi didn't have to worry too much. He said, "It's very simple. 3 days later, the competition between 10,000 Gu Cave and Heavenly Silkworm Hall will go on as usual. And you have to defeat all your opponents with an unstoppable momentum." Princess Carol understood the intention of this, but she looked a little embarrassed. "Of course I want to do this, but the Lord of Heavenly Silkworm Hall, Gauda, is at the 6th level of Gang Spirit Realm. This person is about 50 years old. I don't know how many secret skills he has cultivated. His strength is probably no weaker than the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. If I could defeat this person easily, I wouldn't have to spend so much effort to bribe the spies of Heavenly Silkworm Hall." "That's what I said just now. We have to solve the problem of your strength before that. Now I'll take you to a place. Don't resist," Leng Shiqi said and put his hand on Princess Carol's shoulder. Princess Carol subconsciously wanted to avoid it, but she didn't move. Then she felt dizzy and the scene in front of her changed rapidly. When she woke up, she had already come to a dark, gloomy place full of the qi of the netherworld. Mansion of the Dead. "Where is this?" Leng Shiqi crossed his arms and said, "This is the headquarters of our organization, Mansion of the Dead. You'd better not think about anything else. I have a big gift for you." Princess Carol didn't understand what Leng Shiqi meant. While she was puzzled, she suddenly saw a majestic black qi descending from the sky above Mansion of the Dead and rushing toward her. She couldn't dodge in time and was swallowed by the black qi. Then a voice sounded, "King Wuguan." Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Princess Carol to be able to obtain the inheritance of the Yama kings of the 10 palaces. If she was compared to people of the same age, she would be considered a rare genius in 100 years. Her cultivation was also on par with Xiongming and Yushu. However, the problem was that Yushu and Xiongming were at least a few years younger than Princess Carol. Don't underestimate these few years. True geniuses could undergo earth-shattering changes in these few years. For example, Yushu. If he was given a few more years, he would definitely be able to break through to the unity of heaven and man realm. In this respect, Princess Carol was indeed weaker than them. However, she still obtained the inheritance of the Yama kings of the 10 palaces. Either this level of inheritance wasn't as difficult as Leng Shiqi thought, or Princess Carol had potential that he didn't know about. However, Leng Shiqi wasn't too concerned about this. He was more concerned about the fact that the underworld could finally level up again. Back in the imperial capital, Eunuch Gao had obtained the inheritance of the Yama kings of the underworld when he joined. Now that Princess Carol had obtained the inheritance of King Wuguan, she had fulfilled the requirements for the underworld to level up. However, Leng Shiqi suddenly frowned. He remembered something. Princess Carol hadn't joined the underworld recently. Last time, when he came to welcome the ambassadors from various countries, he had invited Princess Carol into the underworld. However, at that time he still didn't trust Princess Carol very much, so he didn't bring her into the underworld secret realm. I wonder if this counts? Leng Shiqi thought as he opened the territory system interface. He took a closer look. Underworld territories current level, Tier 5. Underworld territories upgrade requirements. 1. Recruit 2 Yama kings of the 10 palaces, 0/2. 2. Collect the top tier soul, 0 out of 1. 3. 160,000 system coins. Underworld has met the upgrade requirements. Territory upgrade requires 300 natural days. Territory cannot be used during this time. Upgrade? It could be upgraded. Leng Shiqi was overjoyed. He immediately chose yes. Chapter 8:18. It was naturally a good thing that the Mansion of the Dead could be upgraded, but Leng Shiqi could not wait for 300 days. He immediately exchanged for 30 basic territory upgrade cards. Basic territory upgrade card detected. It takes time to upgrade the territory. Do you want to upgrade it? Yes. Immediately, the Mansion of the Dead was immediately covered with a layer of gray fog. A divine thought suddenly broke into Leng Shiqi's mind. He seemed to see the entire Mansion of the Dead spreading in all directions. And the speed of the spread was unimaginably fast. After a few blinks of an eye, the signs of the spread finally disappeared. However, Leng Shiqi could not help but open his mouth wide. This was because the area of the Mansion of the Dead had expanded by thousands of times. In terms of area, it was probably larger than the territory of the Thunderfire dynasty. Some places inside had also undergone earth-shattering changes. For example, the underworld Beast Ridge where the monsters lived was even larger than the demonic Miasma mountain range. The road to the underworld seemed to have no end. In the center of the Mansion of the Dead, there was a peak that reached the ninth heaven. At the peak of the peak stood a hideous palace. With a thought, Leng Shiqi instantly arrived in front of the palace. Above the palace, there were 4 large words that flashed with a cold light. Fengdu Imperial Palace. This was the palace of the Emperor of Fengdu. This time the upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead surprised Leng Shiqi. First of all, the area had become too large. Also, wasn't this palace his own palace? Leng Shiqi walked to the door of the big store. However, he was blocked by an invisible wall. He could not get close at all. Is it because I haven't received the inheritance of the Emperor of Fengdu? He secretly guessed. Although he had the title of the Emperor of Fengdu, he had not received the inheritance yet. Now that the Mansion of the Dead had been upgraded to rank 6, it was a pity that he still had not received the inheritance. The appearance of the Fengdu Imperial Palace gave Leng Shiqi a glimmer of hope. Since the palace had appeared, the inheritance should not be far away. Perhaps he could receive the inheritance the next time he upgraded. Thinking of upgrading, Leng Shiqi curiously opened the territory system to see the requirements for the next upgrade. Mansion of the Dead's current level, rank 6. Requirements for upgrading the Mansion of the Dead. 1. Accumulate 100,000 merit points, 0100000. 2. Collect 10 top-level souls, 0/10. 3. 320,000 system coins. Seeing these 3 conditions, Leng Shiqi frowned. To collect 10 top-level souls, he would have to kill 10 Sky Origin Stage cultivators. Sky Origin Stage cultivators were not easy to kill. First of all, how could you find so many of them? A top sect like the Blood Cloak Pavilion only had 6 Heaven Origin Stage cultivators. Among them, Wuxiang had only broken through recently. To do that, Leng Shiqi had to kill all the Sky Origin Stage cultivators from the Blood Robe Pavilion and the Mountain Sea sect. Just thinking about it made him feel like he was dreaming. As for the amount of system coins required, it was within Leng Shiqi's expectations. Sure enough, it doubled again. 320,000 system coins could be considered a sky-high price. Even though he was now the king of the Western Wasteland and had control over countless resources, one should not forget that his imperial residence had just been built. To be able to build such a magnificent imperial residence with so many formations in such a short period of time, who knew how many resources it had consumed? Also, Leng Shiqi was now a big family with a large number of experts under him. He was constantly consuming resources. Therefore, it was difficult for him to take out 320,000 system coins. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi was more or less worried as well. Ever since he found out about the drawbacks of the system, he had almost never used the system because he did not want to be eroded by the system's power. When he had just upgraded the Mansion of the Dead, he had spent 160,000 system coins. The system energy had obviously increased, so he could not help but be vigilant. However, the upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead was still necessary. Therefore, Leng Shiqi could only decide to not use the system casually except for the Mansion of the Dead. Speaking of which, the first condition of the next upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead was a little confusing. Accumulate 100,000 merit points? What was merit points? How did he obtain merit points? He was completely clueless. At the very least, there should be an explanation or something. Leng Shiqi looked through the territory system and did not find any explanation. Instead, he found a new ability of the Mansion of the Dead. Teleport. As long as Leng Shiqi gave permission to a member of the Mansion of the Dead, then that person could teleport into the Mansion of the Dead at any time. Moreover, they could freely enter and exit the opening opened by others. Just like the Delta Origi entering the Mansion of the Dead from the Imperial Capital opened a hole in the Imperial Capital, Leng Shiqi entering the Mansion of the Dead from the Zhu Road country was equivalent to opening a hole in the Zhu Road country. In this way, Leng Shiqi could go to the Imperial Capital at any time, and the Delta Origi could directly come to the Zhu Road country. With this function, it meant that he could summon the people of the Mansion of the Dead in an instant. Leng Shiqi could not help but be stunned. At this moment, he thought of a lot of things. Originally, he planned to help Princess Carol first, and then wait for the people of the Mansion of the Dead to come here before making his move. Now that they could directly teleport here, it was much more convenient and saved a lot of time. In addition, Leng Shiqi had been worried that if the Delta Origi disappeared for a long time, they might be suspected. Now there was no such hidden danger. Then he glanced at Princess Carol, who was still receiving the inheritance, and formed a few seals with his hands to form the illusion of the Emperor of Fengdu. Then, several Dharmakaya illusions appeared one after another. Yuanyang Mingyu Ghost Emperor Delta Origi. Northern Wilderness Yao Yi Ghost Emperor, 9 Li King Qing Guang Yushu, King Pingdeng Xiongming, King Luanzhuan Oziu, and King Sitagarba Tu Deng. He did not call eunuch Gao and Wu Xiang. These two were the higher-ups of the Thunderblaze dynasty and the Blood Garment Pavilion respectively. Although they would not reveal the secrets of the Mansion of the Dead, they could not participate in the matters of the Zhu Road country. This was the first time Ling Shiqi had summoned so many people at the same time. After they arrived at the Mansion of the Dead, they looked around. Delta Origi, Yushu, and Xiongming naturally recognized each other. However, the others were very unfamiliar. 9 Li Oziu and Tu Deng also looked at the others curiously. This was the first time they had seen the other members of the Mansion of the Dead. They knew in their hearts that the people who could be pulled into the Mansion of the Dead by Ling Shiqi were not ordinary people. However, they did not know the other party's true identity. This was quite interesting. Ling Shiqi stretched out his hand and said, "Let me introduce everyone. This is Yuanyang Mingyu Ghost Emperor, and the one beside her is King Wu Guan." He introduced everyone one by one. Finally, he pointed at Princess Carol and said, "This time I called everyone here because the Mansion of the Dead is finally going to make a move. Each of you is the most trustworthy person, and the purpose of the Mansion of the Dead this time is to enter the Zhu Road country." Chapter 8:19. Delta Origi's illusions trembled slightly. Ling Shiqi's words were truly shocking. Although Zhulu country was a small country, it was still stronger than some of the top sects. How could he become the master just like that? Zhulu country's strength was not to be underestimated, but it was still a country and not a sect. The difference between the two was still huge. Any of the top sects were still within the borders of the three great empires. They had to be restrained by the empires and did not have the ability to manage normal people. Zhulu country was different. Such a large place was their territory. All the spirit cultivators and normal people were their subjects. There were advantages and disadvantages to this, which was that Zhulu country's strength had to be spread out. There had to be experts overseeing the four borders and every city had to have experts overseeing it. These people were all scattered across Zhulu country. In contrast, King City's strength was not as concentrated. Ling Shiqi only had to deal with the experts in King City. Normal people would not have such thoughts because there were Sky Origin stage experts overseeing the Royal Consecration Hall. However, Ling Shiqi was not afraid. He had already started plotting against Zhulu country when he was still in the Spirit Aperture realm. It was also because of Princess Ka Luo that he did not want to draw out the experts from the Royal Consecration Hall. At this time, Ling Shiqi looked at 9 Li and Tu Deng. These two did not seem to have reached the 7th rank Great Demon or Sky Origin stage. However, he was sure that their strength definitely surpassed normal Sky Origin stage experts. Adding himself, even if the experts from the Royal Consecration Hall of Zhulu country made a move, it would not be a problem. Ling Shiqi even thought that it would be good if they could make a move. At the same time, he could also increase the progress of Underworld's upgrade. According to what he knew, Zhulu country should have 3 or 4 Sky Origin stage experts. Because they had not made a move for a long time, he could not confirm the exact number. Ling Shiqi looked at the shocked people. The first one to react was 9 Li. She laughed lightly, "You little brat, your guts are getting bigger and bigger. You even dare to plot against Zhulu country. How exciting." Delta Origi turned to look at 9 Li. Based on the conversation between 9 Li and Ling Shiqi, it seemed that they were quite close. Master Tuding put his palms together and said, "Amit Ba, this old monk will take action. I hope that this benefactor will refrain from killing." The way he spoke made everyone feel a little strange. They had never come into contact with the matters of Zhulu country and did not know about the appearance of Buddhism. Otherwise, just based on the words, Amit Ba, they could tell that Tu Deng was a Buddhist. "Don't worry, Grandmaster. Our goal is King Gus. As long as the others don't refuse, I won't be affected by karma," Ling Shiqi said as he pointed at Princess Carol. "Also, I will not sit on Zhulugua's seat, it will be her." Everyone looked at Princess Carol at the same time. At this time, the black gas around her was gradually dissipating. Presumably, the inheritance was about to end. A short moment later, Princess Carol opened her eyes. However, what she saw were several massive phantoms. Ling Shiqi first introduced a few people to Princess Carol and then said, "These are also members of the underworld. This time they will help you take back the throne." Then he formed a few seals and attached them to their bodies. "Now you can teleport into the underworld at any time. This way when you encounter danger you can come in to take refuge." Moreover, you can leave through the exit of others. At this point, Yushu exclaimed, "That works too? Then we're invincible." Although Yushu's words were a little exaggerated, they were also what the others were thinking. For example, when they encountered a life-and-death crisis, they could instantly teleport into the underworld. Unless the opponent had the ability to tear space, they could only stare helplessly. "We are scheduled to start in 3 days. I will open the exit of Zhulu country. When the time comes, you can make the arrangements to teleport over." Among these people, Oziu was now helping Leng Shichi manage the Northern County Dark Thunder Guards and could leave at any time. There was no need to mention Tuding and Jiuli. The ones who were a little troublesome were Delta Origi, Yushu, and Xiong Ming. They had complicated relationships in their respective forces and needed some time to disappear for a period of time. After arranging all of this, Leng Shichi let everyone disperse first. Until he brought Princess Carol out of the underworld, she was still a little confused. The way she looked at Leng Shichi had changed. In her eyes, Leng Shichi was like a mysterious mystery that no one could see through in their lifetime. First of all, they had only met a few times, but every time they met, Leng Shichi's cultivation realm was different. He also had a mysterious and terrifying secret realm like the underworld, and the members of it were all stronger than the last. Princess Carol could clearly feel that she was the weakest among all of them. Especially Jiuli and Tuding, they gave her the feeling that she was facing an erupting volcano that could swallow her at any time. She had never thought that the underworld would be so strong. However, her heart immediately became restless. The stronger the underworld was, the more likely it was for her to take back the throne. Leng Shichi saw the flames of hatred in Princess Carol's eyes and said, "Princess Carol, you have already received King Wuguan's inheritance. Even if it's only 3 days, it's enough for your strength to explosively increase. I believe that the battle between Thousand Gu Cave and Heavenly Silkworm Palace is over." Princess Carol clenched her fists. She felt the mysterious and powerful power in her body and sneered, "I can defeat Heavenly Silkworm Palace's Palace Master Gauda in 1 move. Very good." Leng Shichi clapped his hands and said, "Many people have specially come to watch this battle. It's a good opportunity. Contact a certain clan as soon as possible. After you win, you can openly reveal your identity in front of everyone. When the time comes, I will have a way to make everyone your supporters." "I understand." With that, Princess Carol left the room to make preparations. Leng Shichi returned to the underworld and came to Underworld Beast Ridge, which was where the devil beasts stayed before. When he arrived, the first thing he saw was many devil beast corpses. Leng Shichi wasn't surprised. He had already expected that some devil beasts couldn't adapt to the environment of the underworld, especially the 3rd and 4th ranked devil beasts, most of which were corroded to death by the nether chi. However, they didn't resent Leng Shichi. If it wasn't for him, they would have died long ago. Seeing him come, the 6th-ranked devil beasts immediately surrounded him. 6th-ranked devil beasts were very adaptable, but now there were only 4 left. They were the land monkey, the green snake, the giant ape, and a strange bird. The first thing Leng Shichi saw was Lu Ho, because he remembered that Lu Ho's fur was brownish-yellow, but now it had darkened a lot. Some places had even turned black. He didn't think too much. The purpose of this trip was to borrow the power of these 4 6th-ranked devil beasts. If he wanted to enter the Zhulu country, the Sky Origin Realm's high-end combat power was enough. The Spirit Astral Realm's people could sweep across the same realm. Only the unity of Heaven and Man Realm's people were still lacking. In order to be fully prepared, the land monkey and these devil beasts had to be used. Chapter 820. In addition to these demon beasts, Leng Shichi also had 8 ghost slaves under his command. Among them, the Sword Ghost and the Beast Ghost both had the strength of unity of Heaven and Man, and the rest were comparable to Spirit Astral Realm. This was also a force that could not be ignored. Now that he had the strength of 10,000 Gu Cave, the members of Underworld, Demon Beasts, and Ghost Slaves, he could even shake the top sects. If he counted the Spirit Cultivators in the Western Wilderness King's Mansion, he could directly attack a top sect. 3 days later, the battle between 10,000 Gu Cave and Sky Silkworm Hall arrived as scheduled. On this day, many people crowded the town. Most of them were here to watch the show. A stone platform was built in the center of the town. At this time, Princess Carol and Sky Silkworm Hall Master Gauda were facing each other with swords drawn. Gauda was a bearded man, but his figure was a little short. He said with a fierce expression, "Our elder Warren disappeared 3 days ago. According to my investigation, his body was found in a remote hut. And someone told me that Madame 10,000 Gu seemed to have been nearby. What did you do to Warren? Princess Carol said contemptuously. What, you think I killed him? Who else could it be other than you? Gouda was furious when he saw Princess Carol's attitude. Cut the crap, let's start the battle. Whoever has the bigger fist has the right to question, right? Princess Carol asked. Ah. Gouda was so angry that he laughed. He thought that his cultivation and strength were far stronger than his opponent, but Princess Carol said such words to his face, which made him feel that she did not know what was good for her. You're right. Today I will let you know who has the bigger fist. Call your people up. Princess Carol shook her head gently and said, No need, I alone am enough. These words made Gouda's body stiffen. According to their previous agreement, each side would send 5 people to fight, and the side with more wins would win. But Princess Carol said that she alone was enough? She must be crazy. However, Gouda was also someone who had built a second-rate force. He immediately believed that Princess Carol was cheating. He glanced back and saw several Gang Spirit Realm experts of Thousand Gu Cave standing below obediently, with no intention of fighting on the stage. That's strange. Gold found it very strange. At the same time, a trace of uneasiness arose in his heart. However, he immediately suppressed that uneasiness. In the face of strength, any schemes and tricks were meaningless. Humph, Mistress Wangu, I don't care what you're scheming. Bring it on. However, if you accidentally die by my hands, don't blame me for not showing mercy to you. Princess Carol opened and closed her eyes. Her pupils became abnormally black, as eye-catching as a pair of black gems. But when you looked over, it was as if there was a mysterious force pulling you into a deep whirlpool, making you unable to extricate yourself. Just like that, Gao Erda was absent-minded for a moment. His heart quivered and he instantly bit the tip of his tongue to wake up. He felt a chill run down his spine. He had actually been reduced to such a wretched state by the other party's gaze. Die. Gao Erda clapped his hands and hundreds of white goo worms gushed out of his sleeves. Those goo worms divided into 8 groups and encircled Princess Carol like spiders. Princess Carol's eyes became incomparably cold. She formed a seal with her hands, and the nether chi behind her surged. 5 ferocious ghost masks whizzed out. The onlookers felt as if they had fallen into an ice cellar. Their bodies were shrouded in a strange chill. It was not cold but an aura full of death. Some people immediately fainted on the spot. What kind of goo art is that? Gao Erda was shocked. He had never seen such a strange goo art. Of course he did not know that this was no longer a goo art. Princess Carol stretched out her hand, and the 5 ghost masks immediately surrounded Gao Erda. Then the ghost masks opened their bloody mouths and spat out clouds of different colors. In the blink of an eye, Gao Erda's white goo worms were all devoured. Ah! Gao Erda screamed. Those goo worms were all carefully cultivated by him. Not only did they cost him a lot of time, but they also absorbed some of his essence blood. Now that they were all killed in an instant, he suffered a considerable backlash. This was not the worst. What shocked him the most was Princess Carol's strength. He knew that Princess Carol had just broken through to the 4th level of the spirit astral realm not long ago. Her cultivation was 2 levels lower than his, and her strength could not compare to his. This was not because he was overconfident, but because goo art could indeed increase one's strength with time. After all, to nurture a precious goo worm that was suitable for oneself required time. But judging from the current situation, Princess Carol's strength was far above his. This shocked and puzzled Gold at the same time. If the other party had such strength, why would she need to fight with him? She could just come to his door and fight. He definitely did not expect that Princess Carol's strength would suddenly soar because she had obtained King Wuguan's inheritance. And as she comprehended more of the inheritance, there would be a period of explosive growth. Under Princess Carol's control, the 5 ghost masks rushed toward Gao Erda. Gao Erda was immediately scared out of his wits. He turned around and fled, but how could he escape from the ghost masks? After 2 breaths, the ghost masks caught up to him and tore him into pieces. Large amounts of blood and minced meat splattered on the spot. Some people could not stand such a horrifying scene and bent over to vomit. Some people who had experienced bloody battles were also pale. Some felt that something was wrong. Instead, their eyes shone with excitement. Everyone was in awe of the strong. Princess Carol's crushing of Gao Erda in one move shocked everyone. Some people even turned to the people of the Thousand Gu Cave and said they wanted to join. At this moment, Princess Carol threw away the hat and veil she had been wearing, revealing her true appearance. Wow! Is this Lady Thousand Gu? She's so beautiful. So young. Her future is limitless. I always thought she was too ugly to show her face. Turns out she's too beautiful. Cries of surprise erupted in the town. Princess Carol stood upright on the stone platform and said in a crisp voice, "I am Lady Thousand Gu, but I also have another name, Princess Carol." Princess Carol? The daughter of the late king. She's still alive? If she really is Princess Carol, how did she become Lady Thousand Gu? Everyone's eyes widened. They were even more shocked than before. What everyone did not know was that there was a person floating thousands of meters above the town. That was Leng Shiqi. He smiled when he saw the scene below. He formed a seal with his hands and 9-colored light flashed around him. Illusion Dream Glass. Chapter 821. In the small town, Princess Carol stood on the stone platform. She said with grief and indignation, "My father spent all his effort for Zhulu country. He never slacked off in his life, but in the end he was harmed by a traitor. After my father died, my mother and I were hunted down. Only I was lucky enough to escape with my life. I built the 10,000 Gu cave to endure humiliation in order to take back everything that belongs to me. Are you willing to follow me?" After saying these words, Princess Carol had no confidence at all. She didn't think that she could incite these people with just these few words. However, Leng Shiqi had specifically told her to just say a few words. Princess Carol didn't know why, but she still did as she was told. She stood on the stage and saw that everyone below was a little silly, as if they were in a daze. Just when she was a little confused, everyone immediately burst into a burst of cheers. Then a large number of people knelt down at the same time and shouted, "We pledge our lives to follow Princess Carol." There weren't many people in the small town. Including those who came to watch the show, there were only tens of thousands of people. Now that these people were all kneeling in front of Princess Carol, she didn't come back to her senses. She couldn't figure it out. Was she speaking too well or was she too charming? No matter what, it shouldn't be like this, right? However, Princess Carol immediately thought that it was very likely that Leng Shiqi had done something in the dark. She took a deep breath and raised her head slightly, revealing the power of a superior. "Get up." "Thank you, Your Highness." Everyone got up one after another and stood there obediently. Princess Carol glanced at the spirit cultivators of the heavenly silkworm palace. They all had fanatical expressions, including the spirit astral realm experts. What kind of method is this? Even the spirit astral realm can be easily changed. This is many times better than the mind control voodoo. Princess Carol was shocked, but there was no expression on her face. She lowered her head and said, "You are my vanguard and my backing. All spirit cultivators, get ready. Tomorrow we will set off for Lenberg City." "Yes, Your Highness." Lenberg City was the closest city. The next step was to occupy the city and use it as a foundation. After the crowd dispersed, Princess Carol walked into an inn, where Leng Shiqi was already waiting for her. "Your Highness, it's been a long time since you've been worshipped by thousands of people, right?" When Princess Carol was still a princess, she was often bowed to, but in recent years she hadn't been able to enjoy this feeling. "I don't feel anything. I just want to ask a question. Tell me about it." "With your ability, occupying Lenberg City will be a piece of cake, but this will definitely attract the attention of Gus. He might even send a combat army over." Princess Carol said worriedly, "Even if we're not weak, if we want to fight against the combat army, we're bound to suffer heavy casualties. In my opinion, it's better to sneak into the royal city and find an opportunity to attack the palace." Leng Shiqi nodded seriously. "Your Highness is very thoughtful. This is a better idea. You should have thought of it long ago." "That's right, it might be easier to do that, but don't forget, Gus has been on the throne for several years. The officials and ordinary people of Zhu Road country have already accepted this king. And at this time, if you suddenly take away the throne, even if you have the support of the clan, it will cause the hearts of the people to be unstable, and there will even be more people who will rebel. We are now making a big fuss to let the world know of your existence. You are standing on the side of justice. When you sit on the throne, you can settle everything in the shortest time possible. Do you want an incomparably chaotic Zhu Road country or a stable Zhu Road country?" Princess Carol pondered for a moment and said, "So that's how it is. You have a long-term vision, but this Zhu Road country is not mine." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi smiled. "Princess Carol is thinking too much. The Zhu Road country belongs to you and no one will take it away. Your Highness should go and make the arrangements. We will welcome a fierce battle in Lenberg City." A day later, Princess Carol rushed to Lenberg City with the spirit cultivators in the small town. They had to be fast, they had to occupy Lenberg City before the news spread to the King City. Although it was said to be occupation, in fact there was only a very short battle here. That was Princess Carol displaying her might and killing the city lord of Lenberg City in 2 moves. Then she easily took over the city lord's mansion and the city guards. Leng Shiqi used an illusion to completely control Lenberg City. Zhu Road Country Palace. How dare you! Suddenly, a loud shout came from the palace. King Gus flipped the dragon table in front of him and said angrily, "Carol, a little girl actually dares to rebel. I thought she had already died in the Goo God Peak, but unexpectedly she escaped with her life. What a pity, since she escaped and didn't know how to hide. Don't blame me for being ruthless. Men, immediately mobilize the Indian army to strangle the traitors in Lenberg City. Remember to bring back Carol's head. I want to choose it from the King City's gate and let the world know what happens to those who plot against us." "Your Majesty, please calm down." At this time, a general stood out and said, "Dio, what do you have to say?" This Dia had always followed Gus. Back then he had also experienced the Battle of the Goo God Peak. It could be said that he was one of Gus's most trusted people. Therefore, Gus suppressed the anger in his heart and let him speak. "Your Majesty, although that girl Carol is despicable, since she dares to openly cause trouble, she must have something to rely on. Right now we don't know anything about Lenberg City. We don't even know how many experts are by Carol's side. In my opinion, we can work on both sides. First, mobilize the Indian army and at the same time, send people to scout the inside of Lenberg City. Just in case, we can also send a few experts to secretly follow." "Well said, we'll do as you say. This time you will be responsible for killing Carol. Gary Boshi, you two assist Dia." Gary and Boshi were the 2 Unity of Heaven realm experts that Gus had recruited. Back then, when Leng Shiqi caused havoc in the Zhu Road Country Palace, he had seen these 2 people. "Yes, Your Majesty." The 3 received the order and withdrew. On the other hand, Dia was secretly delighted. He didn't underestimate Carol, but with him leading the Indian army, victory was in his hands. The great merit of exterminating the traitors would fall into his hands. The others also cast envious gazes over. Soon, Dia led an army of 10,000 and arrived at the city. Meanwhile, Princess Carol and the experts under her command were already standing on the city wall. Dia rode on his horse and saw Princess Carol's beautiful face. He shouted, "Princess Carol, I haven't seen you for a few years. You've become even more beautiful. What a pity, what a pity. This face will soon be hung above the King City." Princess Carol coldly said, "Stop talking nonsense. Since you're here today, then stay here forever." Chapter 822. Arrogant. Dea suddenly shouted. He had received information that although there were many spirit cultivators following Princess Carol in Lenberg City, there were not many experts among them. Most importantly, none of them were in the unity of heaven and man realm. Not only were there tens of thousands of Indian soldiers behind Dea, but there were also 2 in the unity of heaven and man realm. This was a battle without any suspense. Dea pulled out his sword, waved it and shouted, "Kill!" Princess Carol waved her hand, and hundreds of people jumped down from the city wall. These people were all experts in the 4 realms of heaven and man. When Dea saw this, he secretly cursed Princess Carol for being extremely stupid. Not to mention that these people were unable to stop the Indian army. Princess Carol might be able to hold on for a while if she defended the city wall to the death. But now she actually gave up the tall city wall and took the initiative to fight. She was simply courting death. As expected, you're still a little girl. I overestimated you before. Among the people who rushed out of the city wall, there were 4 people standing at the front. All 4 of them were wearing large cloaks and different devil masks. When Dea saw them, for some reason, a sense of fear rose in his heart. "What the hell?" Dea muttered in his heart, but he did not take it to heart. He immediately charged over with the army. The 4 people were Delta Origi, Yushu, Xiongming, and Oziu. The 2 armies clashed and Xiongming took the lead. A wave of black gas spread rapidly with him as the center. In an instant, it covered a radius of several miles and enveloped everyone. "What the hell is that? I can't see anything. This black gas is strange. Not only can it block my vision, but it's also slowly eroding my spiritual power." The Indian army was instantly in chaos, and at this moment, a strange blood moon hung high in the sky. Behind Delta Origi stood 3 humanoid blood shadows. One held a blade, one held a spear, and one drew a bow. Sensing it, the three blood shadows had power comparable to the peak of the spirit aperture realm. Immediately after, the Delta Origi held a sinister bone sword in her hand, and the blood aura around her surged violently. The eyes of the nearby Indian soldiers immediately turned red, and they started to kill the people around them. The Delta Origi shot out like a blood-red arrow, killing its way into the midst of the Indian army. The ordinary soldiers of the Indian army were also spirit cultivators, but their cultivation was basically at the spirit gathering realm and the pure spirit realm. How could they stop the Delta Origi? Dozens of people had lost their lives in her hands in a single exchange. The nearby Indian soldiers immediately surrounded her. Delta Origi's two crimson shadows shielded her back like protectors, while the crimson shadow wielding a bow shot anyone who tried to sneak up on her. However, Gu San charged towards Dia with an indomitable will. At the same time, the phantom of a demon floated above Yushu's body. The demon held a blood blade in its hand and killed the Indian soldiers like a meat grinder. As for Oziu, he was much more graceful. With a light tap of his sword, rays of illusory sword chi shot out in all directions. The low-level Indian soldiers were still immersed in the illusion before they lost their lives. It was not much pain. The four of them had just made their move, and the Indian army had already lost hundreds of people. Moreover, everyone was terrified and there were already signs of the army's morale being slackened. This was something that Dea had never thought of. The Indian army was one of the three strongest armies in the Zulu country. Everyone was carefully selected and trained regularly, so it was impossible for them to be so weak. If they had to blame someone, they could only blame the Delta Origi for being too terrifying. Especially now that all the Indian soldiers were shrouded in the black gas of the netherworld, it was inevitable that they would feel fear in their hearts. The Delta Origi and the others were constantly slaughtering others, and the screams in their ears never stopped. Therefore, the more than 9,000 Indian soldiers behind them had already thought of escaping before they even fought. Of course, it was impossible for them to escape. Dea's spiritual gang burst out and forced a part of the black gas to retreat. He hurriedly said, "Lord Gary, Lord Boshi, please make your move." The strength and threat of the Delta Origi and the others were extremely great. If this continued, even if they took down Lemberg City, there would be a lot of losses. They had to be eliminated first. Gary clapped his hands and immediately there was a loud bang. The black gas of the netherworld twisted and was already on the verge of collapse. Boshi, who was beside him, raised a red giant axe. The giant axe smashed down as if it was splitting the sky and actually cut the black gas in half. The black gas dissipated like smoke, and the Indian army finally calmed down. Gary instantly locked onto the Delta Origi who had been attacking this side. He sneered and said, "You're courting death." Immediately he pointed out a finger, and an invisible finger force stirred the wind and pierced out. In his opinion, no matter how strong the Delta Origi was, they were only in the gang spirit realm. The only outcome was death. However, at this moment, a sinister wind blew past, and even Gary, who was in the union of heaven and man realm, felt a chill down his spine. Immediately after, a shocking intense soared into the sky. A sinister sword aura appeared and tore the sky apart, directly cutting off Gary's finger force. The person who made the move was the ghost slave that the Thousand Illusion Sword Master had turned into, the Sword Ghost. "Who is it?" Gary was shocked. To be able to cut off his finger force, the other party's strength was probably above his. On the other side, Boshi was also targeted by a strange aura. A translucent figure descended from the sky. As he waved his hand, ghostly aura surged and condensed into terrifying monsters that pounced towards Boshi. That was the ghost slave that Zhuozhou had turned into after his death, the Beast Ghost. The Sword Ghost and the Beast Ghost immediately started fighting with Gary and Boshi. Violent spiritual energy waves were released, and the Indian army was affected. As a result, hundreds of people died. Dea was stunned. Just now, the Delta Origi were indeed very strong, but Dea had the army and was confident of victory. However, not only was he stunned now, he was also panicking. There were actually two people at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage hidden in Lemberg City. This was something that they did not find out before. Otherwise he would not have killed his way over. Although he still had the Indian army, there were many low-level spirit cultivators on Princess Carol's side who had not made a move yet. In addition to the experts from the Delta Origi, this originally easy battle suddenly became very troublesome. Princess Carol, who was on the city wall, was also very surprised when she saw the scene below. Lung Shichi still had people at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage, which was something that even Princess Carol did not know about. Is he deliberately hiding it from me? However, Princess Carol also knew that now was not the time to think too much. The morale of the Indian army was low, and the two people at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage were entangled. This was the best time to counterattack. Everyone listen to my orders. Kill your way out of the city. Bang! The city gates of Lenberg City were opened, and more than 1,000 low-level spirit cultivators swarmed out and attacked the Indian army. If it was in the past, such a motley crew was basically no match for the Indian army. However, the people from the Delta Origi were unstoppable in the Indian army. Even if some of the spirit astral realm experts of the Indian army came over, they could not stop them. Dea's face was gloomy. Everything happened too quickly, so quickly that he was caught off guard. He even had a ridiculous thought in his mind. Failure. Chapter 823. Dea shook his head abruptly. How could he fail? Although he was in a bit of a mess now, he still had a huge advantage in terms of numbers and strength. He could win even if he had to fight to the death. All of a sudden, he was shrouded by a gust of murderous intent. He turned around and saw Delta Origi drenched in blood crazily charging at him. Delta Origi was surrounded by layers of bloody mist. That was the bloody chi left behind by the people she had killed. It had only been a while, but hundreds of people had died in her hands. Dea's heart skipped a beat. Stop her. Stop her for me. The two gang spirit realm experts on his left and right rushed at Delta Origi. However, the blood moon hanging high in the sky suddenly trembled and then fell down with a terrifying whistling sound. Dense bloody chi covered the sky and earth. Delta Origi leaped high and pinched a seal. At this moment she seemed to have become one with the blood moon. The bone sword in her hand slashed out, and a crescent sword light tore through the void. This power had far exceeded the scope of gang spirit realm and attracted the attention of countless people. The two gang spirit realm experts were immediately scared out of their wits. They turned around and fled without any hesitation. Unfortunately, Delta Origi's bow-wielding blood shadow suddenly shot thousands of arrows at the same time. Hundreds of blood-red arrows fell from the sky. These blood arrows were not very powerful, but they happened to block the two people's path at this moment. The two people were terrified and immediately called for help. Lord Dea, help! Help! Unfortunately, before they could finish their words, they were cut into two by the blood moon. Hiss! Dea sucked in a breath of cold air. Both of them were at the middle stage of gang spirit realm. Yet they were killed in an instant. He looked at Delta Origi with fear in his eyes. Where did this expert come from? Seeing Delta Origi continue to charge at him, Dea's heart was finally in a mess. There were other masters of gang spirit realm in the Indian army, but they had been entangled by Yushu, Princess Carol, and others. After a few moves they were either killed or injured. Everyone could hardly protect themselves, so no one could help him. Gary and Bossy were also being suppressed by Sword Demon and Beast Demon. Had it not been for the fact that Sword Demon and Beast Demon did not possess a physical body, which limited their strength, the two men would have already been severely injured. As for the ordinary Indian soldiers, they were just sending themselves to their deaths. There was no way they could stop the Delta Origi. Dea suddenly realized that he was standing at the edge of the gates of hell. If he was really killed, the Indian army would be like a group of dragons without a leader, and the morale of the army would definitely drop. They might even be defeated by the 1,000+ men. Dea didn't even dare to dream of such a situation. However, this was the reality. The change was too fast. In just a short moment, he had gone from having victory in his grasp to almost running away. He knew that if he escaped, he would be severely punished by King Gus. However, the Delta Origi were too strong and he had no confidence in fighting them. If he didn't run, he might die. How was he supposed to choose between being punished and dying? Dea quickly made his choice. Escape. All of you, go and surround her. Dea ordered the dozen or so spirit aperture realm cultivators around him in a panic. No matter how useless these people were, they would at least be able to stall for some time. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he actually ignored his status and the Indian army and urged his horse to flee. Gary was the first to see this and he immediately scolded, Dea, you actually dare to run away. This is a crime punishable by death. Cowardly rat. Bossy was also gnashing his teeth in hatred. The two of them were being beaten up by Sword Demon and Beast Demon to the point where they could not even retaliate. They had originally pinned their hopes on Dea to quickly exterminate Princess Carol, but Dea had actually run away first. Dea was the leader of this operation to encircle and annihilate Princess Carol. Now that their leader had run away, what were they still fighting for? Thus, Gary and Bossy both had the same thought. Since Dea was the one who ran away first, they could push the blame onto Dea even if they were to be blamed for it. If they wanted to leave now, they could still do so at any time, but if they were to continue fighting, there was no telling what would happen. The two men secretly exchanged glances and came to a decision. If they did not leave now, when would they? Following which, the two men suddenly burst forth and forced Sword Demon and Beast Demon to retreat before quickly leaving the battlefield. Following the escape of the three men, the remaining Indian soldiers were completely dumbfounded. Their commander had run away, and their two strongest men at the Unity of Heaven realm had also run away. Did that not mean that they could only be slaughtered? They had been abandoned. Yushu and the others could casually slaughter dozens of people with a single strike. In the eyes of the Indian soldiers, they were no different from demons. At this time, Princess Carol had already led a group of spirit cultivators to kill their way over. There were less than 2,000 spirit cultivators here, but this caused the remaining 9,000 over Indian soldiers to feel despair. Immediately, there were quite a number of people who threw away their helmets and armor and became deserters. As the saying goes, a defeated army is like a landslide. The Indian soldiers instantly panicked and did not know where to go, turning into a pile of scattered sand. Run. Ghosts, they are ghosts. You are soldiers. Even if you die, you will die on the battlefield. Desertion is a disgrace. There were also people who shouted themselves hoarse, unwilling to escape. Don't block me, scram. However, this person was directly pushed aside. The Indian army fell into chaos. It could be said that they were utterly defeated. Princess Carol frowned when she saw the Indian army like this. Although her side had taken them by surprise, the number of Indian soldiers was still here. Moreover, they were all wearing armor and were well equipped. Just this point alone was not something that Princess Carol's soldiers could compare to. In addition, although the Delta Origi strength was extraordinary, like a tiger in a flock of sheep, their violent attacks could not last for long. As long as the Indian army stabilized their footing and set up their military formation, as long as Leng Shichi did not reveal any other trump cards, the Indian army still had hope of winning. But now, with Diya and the other two escaping, the Indian army had become like this. To be honest, this made Princess Carol somewhat disappointed. Her Zhulu country's elite army, the Indian army, was so weak. She secretly made up her mind that when she became the king, she would definitely rectify it. However, at this moment, Princess Carol needed to end this battle as soon as possible. Because no matter who it was, both sides were citizens of Zhulu country, her citizens. Princess Carol gathered her spiritual energy and shouted, "Everyone listen up. We are all citizens of Zhulu country. There is no need to fight to the death. Now that Diya has abandoned you, as long as you surrender to me, you can keep your lives." The people behind her shouted in unison, "Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed. Those who surrender will not be killed." Many people in the Indian army were immediately moved. If there was hope of living, who would want to die? However, some people were still hesitating. If they became deserters, they could just hide. But if they became rebels, they would be hunted down by Zhulu country for the rest of their lives. If Princess Carol failed in the end, they would still die. Just as they were hesitating, an undetectable spiritual energy quietly invaded their minds. In their eyes, Princess Carol was a high and mighty deity that could not be offended. Everyone was prostrating before her. "I am willing to surrender. Greetings, Princess Carol." Chapter 824. Boom. In the palace of Zhulu country, a miserable body was blasted out, leaving a deep trail of blood along the way. That person was Dea. Dea was sent flying by King Gus with a slap. As the commander-in-chief, you actually fled at the last minute and let nearly 10,000 Indian soldiers surrender to the traitor Carol. You still have the guts to come and see me. If it weren't for our old friendship, I would have torn you into pieces right now. King Gus roared. In fact, he was usually a scheming person and had never been so irritable. It was Dea who had provoked him this time. This trip to Lenberg City was simply a suicide mission. It was supposed to be an extermination mission, but in the end, he sent a large number of Indian soldiers to Princess Carol. Originally, Princess Carol was just a small matter in Gus's eyes. Now, with the Indian army, Princess Carol had the qualifications to challenge Gus. Although Princess Carol only had 10,000 men under her command, Zhulu country still had tens of thousands of soldiers. On the surface, it looked like they had a great advantage. But don't forget, Zhulu country was a country after all. It was surrounded by Beilu country and Great Moon country who had been eyeing it covetously. At this time, the news of Princess Carol's rebellion should have spread to them. If Gus mobilized a large number of troops to eliminate Princess Carol, Beilu country and Great Moon country would definitely not turn a blind eye. They would hit her when she was down. Therefore, Princess Carol could already threaten the safety of Zhulu country. Dea still had a few breaths left. He got up with difficulty and knelt on the ground to explain, "Your Majesty, I have been defeated and fled. I deserve to die. No matter how your Majesty punishes me, I will have no complaints. But the biggest reason why I lost this battle was that the intelligence was inaccurate. Carol has several spirit astral realm experts under her command. Their strength is not inferior to the union of heaven and man realm. They killed their way in as if they were invading a no man's land. None of us could stop them. In addition, Carol actually hid 2 union of heaven and man realm experts. Lord Gary and Lord Bushi are no match for them. Both of you can bear witness to this. This humble subject is not lying at all." "Really?" King Gus looked at Gary and asked. Gary said in a deep voice, "Dea is telling the truth." Crack crack. King Gus immediately crushed his throne. Now he finally knew where Princess Carol's confidence came from. It turned out that she had hidden it so deeply. He had to find a way to deal with Princess Carol as soon as possible. Otherwise, if the other party's forces continued to expand, there would be no leeway left. King Gus hatefully said, "Dea, in consideration of your years of loyalty, I'll spare your life for now. In the future, you'll be the vanguard in our crusade against Kaler." "Yes, your Majesty." "Thank you for your kindness." Dea was so happy that he could keep his life. "Not good, your Majesty, something big has happened." At this time, a group of people ran in from outside the palace. They were the officials in charge of Zhulu's intelligence. Dea had not seen these people for a long time. Back then, it was because of these people's wrong information that he had made such a huge mistake and almost lost his life. Thus he sneered, "Impudent. How could something happen to your Majesty's health? How dare you make such a ruckus in the palace?" However, these people did not pay him any attention. One of them took out a dozen reports in a panic and said with a trembling voice, Your Majesty, a large number of people supporting Kaler have appeared in the various cities. They are constantly spreading the news. Right now, Kaler's influence is unprecedentedly strong. Your Majesty, you are about to lose the hearts of the people." Buzz. King Gus's mind was in a daze. Soon after, he muttered, "Impossible, absolutely impossible. Kaler has just started her rebellion a few days ago. How could she have so many supporters? It's the Buddhist sect. The entire Buddhist sect has already submitted to Kaler. At first, we didn't pay much attention to it. But suddenly, we discovered that the Buddhist sect's believers have spread throughout Zhulu. Moreover, those believers are spreading like a plague. I'm afraid it won't be long before the world only knows about Kaler and not your Majesty." The Buddhist sect. King Gus was even more dazed. He naturally knew about the Buddhist sect, especially after Tu Deng made his move. Everyone knew that the Buddhist sect had a Sky Origin Stage expert overseeing it. A Sky Origin Stage expert was a huge threat to the Zhulu country. They had to either subdue him or eliminate him. Therefore, King Gus had specially sent people to persuade Tu Deng to submit to the Zhulu country. However, he never thought that the Buddhist sect would actually support Princess Kaler. He never thought that the influence of the Buddhist sect would be so great. All of a sudden, King Gus felt a little scared. Princess Kaler had over 10,000 spirit cultivators in her hands and many experts under her command. Adding the support of the people, it could be said that the situation was already set. There was also the Buddhist sect. If the Buddhist sect had submitted to Kaler, it meant that the Sky Origin Stage expert, Tu Deng, was also on Kaler's side. In the Imperial City, who could deal with a Sky Origin Stage expert? King Gus immediately thought of the Royal Consecration Hall. The only ones who could save him were the few experts in the Royal Consecration Hall. But what he was worried about was that those people might not make a move. Princess Kaler was the daughter of the previous king, and indeed had the qualifications to inherit the throne. This kind of matter was an internal struggle of the royal family, and the Royal Consecration Hall would not interfere. Therefore the key point was the Buddhist sect. If King Gus could prove that the Buddhist sect had submitted to Princess Kaler, it would be equivalent to the Spirit Cultivator sect joining in. This would give them a reason to invite the experts of the Consecration Hall. King Gus sat down, his eyes shining. After a while he smiled and said, "There's no need to worry about this. You guys take care of your own duties. Leave the rest to me." With that, King Gus left, leaving behind a majestic back view for the crowd. Everyone suddenly felt relieved. It seemed that their king had found a way. In Lemberg City, Princess Kaler was half happy and half worried after seeing the information. She asked Leng Shichi, "You can actually use the power of the Buddhist sect. This way I can obtain a lot of people's hearts. However, with the participation of the Spirit Cultivator sect, I'm afraid that Gus will be able to invite the experts of the Royal Consecration Hall. I heard that the Buddhist sect has a Sky Origin Stage expert, but the Consecration Hall has several Sky Origin Stage experts. If they were to make a move, we wouldn't even have a chance of winning." However, Leng Shichi said, "Strictly speaking, the Buddhist sect is not a Spirit Cultivator sect. Moreover, the people who support you are only ordinary people. Gus might not be able to invite them. Even so, those people in the Consecration Hall don't know the true situation of the Buddhist sect. With Gus's scheming, he will definitely avoid the important points and add fuel to the fire. Once the Sky Origin Stage expert comes, we won't even be able to escape." Princess Kaler was a little anxious. Leng Shichi narrowed his eyes, and a trace of undetectable killing intent flashed through his eyes. He said, "So what?" Chapter 825. Princess Carol's eyes widened in disbelief. She looked up and down at Leng Shichi as if it was the first time she had seen him. What did you just say?" "Well, Your Highness, don't worry. I've arranged everything. You just need to wait for the throne." Princess Carol knew that Leng Shichi was hiding something from her, which made her feel like a tool. In fact, it was true. But Princess Carol was willing to be a tool. As long as she could take back the throne, she was willing to do anything. Perhaps from the beginning, there was only hatred in her heart. She didn't know when it started, but she coveted the throne more and more. A few days later, Lemberg City was calm. This puzzled many people. Gus would never let Princess Carol continue to expand her reputation and power. Why didn't he take action? But some people knew very well that this was just the calm before the storm. At night, Leng Shichi sat cross-legged in the mansion of the governor of Lemberg City. He opened his Byakugan and kept an eye on everything in Lemberg City. Suddenly, dozens of powerful spiritual auras entered his field of vision. Leng Shichi snorted, "Sure enough, they're here." It was King Gus. His idea was not to suppress the border with an army, but to kill Princess Carol directly with masters. As long as Princess Carol died, these traitors wouldn't be a problem. In the vision of Leng Shichi, there were 5 masters of the oneness of heaven and men realm, including King Gus, and more than 60 masters of the gang spirit realm. It seems that Gus has been secretly mobilizing these masters these days. Almost all the masters of the Zhulu kingdom have been transferred. But these people are far from enough. Gus doesn't dare to lead the army in person. Leng Shichi guessed that Gus probably also brought masters of the Tianyuan realm. Unfortunately, if the masters of the Tianyuan realm wanted to hide, his Byakugan wouldn't be able to find them. Now Gus was still dozens of miles away from Lemberg City. With their speed, they could enter Lemberg City in a moment. Leng Shichi immediately transmitted a message to Princess Carol. "Gus is here. Go out and fight." Princess Carol's heart tightened. Gus had actually come in person. She had no time to think and immediately left Lemberg City with Leng Shichi with all the masters of Gang Spirit Realm. Once they started fighting, the city wouldn't be able to withstand it. Meanwhile, Gus was leading a group of masters to approach Lemberg City with murderous intent. As soon as they got close, they saw more than 20 figures standing outside the city gate. It was as if they knew they were coming. "Uncle Gus, why didn't you inform me that you're coming to Lemberg City so late at night? I could have prepared a feast for you." Princess Carol's voice came from the darkness. Gus stopped in his tracks. Initially, he had planned to sneak into Lemberg City and take the city by surprise, but it seemed like they had been discovered long ago. He just didn't know if the other party had guessed correctly, or if he had leaked some information on his side. Gus glanced at the people around him. There were very few people who knew about the assassination of Princess Carol, and almost everyone was here. Who leaked the information? However, there was no time for him to catch the traitor at this moment. He couldn't even show his suspicion, otherwise he would only panic first. Gus looked at Princess Carol and felt very strange. He said in a deep voice, "Little Carol, it's really lucky that you didn't die in the Battle of Goo God Peak. But why are you against me?" It's not me who hurt your father and mother but Sang Hutong. Also, since you've been hiding in Zhulu country for the past few years, you should know whether I've ever done anything foolish or wronged the people of Zhulu country since I ascended the throne. Now you're against me. I don't understand. As soon as he opened his mouth, he put himself on the side of innocence and justice. However, Princess Carol was no longer the Princess Carol of the past. She said in a cold voice, "Ridiculous. If I had shown up at Gugod Peak, I'm afraid I would have been killed by you. It's useless to say more. As the ruler of a country, didn't you also do a dirty thing like sneak attack tonight? Now that things have come to this, there's only one outcome between us." Gus was observing the spirit cultivators behind Princess Carol. They were all masters of the spirit astral realm. Most of them were recruited and a few of them were from the Indian army. However, there was no one Gus wanted to see. According to Dea, when he led the Indian army to attack Lenberg City, there were 4 people who were very strong, but they didn't appear at this moment. There were also 2 powerful masters of the unity of heaven and man realm. They were the ones Gus feared the most. Although the people he brought this time could absolutely crush Princess Carol in terms of strength, Gus was a meticulous person. He didn't allow any hidden dangers to exist. Since you've already said that, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. Gus formed a seal with both hands and the sky suddenly became dark clouds. The power of water elements within a radius of dozens of miles surged crazily. The surroundings of Lenberg City were filled with water vapor, and a powerful spirit technique was ready to be launched. Gus was still observing the surroundings. He didn't believe that the other party could remain calm. Then a cloud of black fog suddenly appeared, and several figures walked out of it. They were Delta Origi, Yushu, and Ozu. Humph, sure enough, I blew them out. Gus smiled proudly. He sneered and said, "Just the 3 of you? Where are the others? Come out. There's no need to hide. Otherwise I'll have to collect your corpses." Hee, it's not certain who will collect whose corpses. Yushu immediately said sarcastically, "I have to admire you. As the king, you dare to fight in person and take away more than 80% of the masters of King City. I don't know if you're confident or conceited. Aren't you worried about your backyard being on fire?" Hearing this, King Gus felt that something was wrong. Since the other party already knew that he was coming, he naturally knew that King City was at its weakest now. There were only a few spirit astral realm masters left. If someone broke into King City at this time, the consequences would be unimaginable. Oh no. King Gus was anxious, but he immediately calmed down. After all, King City was King City, and there were masters of the Royal Hall of Worship secretly guarding it. Nothing serious would happen. As long as he could kill Princess Carol and the others in the shortest time and return to King City, all the crises would be gone. "Listen to my order, go all out to eliminate the traitors," King Gus shouted. Immediately he pressed his hands and a torrential rain fell. Every drop of rain contained powerful water spiritual power. The spirit cultivators on Princess Carol's side could only support their body-protecting spiritual gang to barely hold on. At this moment, a figure wearing the mask of the Emperor of Fengdu appeared strangely. He raised his hand and hundreds of bloody balls scattered in the sky. Everyone was stunned when they took a closer look. Those were all human heads. And they were the heads of Gus's trusted subordinates. Chapter 826. Everyone was shocked when they saw the heads. King Nagus's eyes were bloodshot. He had personally groomed the owners of these heads. Many of them had been with him since he came of age. They were his most trusted subordinates. Not only that, they all held important positions in the Zhu Road Kingdom. They were the pillars of the kingdom. But they were all dead. They were all dead. The head was thrown right in front of him, which made Gus furious. At the same time, he couldn't believe this was real. The dead people all had their own guards. They were scattered all over the kingdom. How could they be killed all at once? How chaotic would the kingdom be? Most importantly, there were Sky Origin stage cultivators from the Royal Hall of Worship in the King City. Under such circumstances they were still killed. Even Sky Origin stage cultivators could not stop them. How terrifying was the person who did it? Was it the Sky Origin stage cultivator from the Buddhist sect? Gus couldn't do it. But he knew that his backyard was on fire. Carol, what a good move. I underestimated you. I'll take your life to appease my hatred." Gus was on the verge of going crazy. The dark clouds in the sky were like black clouds pressing down on the city. That shocking killing intent made everyone tremble in fear. Princess Carol couldn't believe it either. She had been with Leng Shiqi for the past few days. How could he go to the kingdom and kill so many people and then return to the kingdom? Even if he could fly, he couldn't do it. In fact, Leng Shiqi had Xiong Ming secretly go to the kingdom a few days ago. His original intention was to let Xiong Ming investigate Qing Si's strength. Who would have thought that Qing Si would bring his men to attack them? This gave Leng Shiqi a great opportunity. After Leng Shiqi notified Princess Carol, he turned around and teleported to the royal city through the underworld. What followed was a series of massacres. All of Gus's trusted subordinates died in his hands. It wasn't hard to get information on them. After all, they were all in high positions. Their whereabouts were easy to track. Moreover, they would have to kill Princess Carol sooner or later after she ascended to the throne. Now it was just a bit earlier. The Leng Shiqi used the Qian Kuan earth movement technique to harvest lives mercilessly like a ghost. There were also several fierce battles that attracted a large number of imperial guards. In the end, it even attracted the attention of the Sky Origin Stage cultivators who were guarding the city. Leng Shiqi immediately withdrew his attack, and under the cover of the netherworld, the two of them teleported back from the royal city, which led to the earlier scene. At the same time, Leng Shiqi also got a secret message. Since there was only one Sky Origin Stage cultivator in the city, it meant the other powerful cultivators of the Zhu Lu Kingdom's Royal Hall of Worship were all around the city. Gus made a series of hand seals in a frenzy. Dazzling spiritual light illuminated the night sky as boundless water elemental power invaded this part of the world. Immediately after, a huge spirit crystal rose from the ground. Streams of water vapor shot out from the spirit crystal like a whirlwind. It was powerful enough to sweep through the entire area. Leng Shiqi's eyes narrowed. Gus' attack had some resemblance of a Sky Origin Stage cultivator. Of course, to him it was still a bit weak. However, he was not in a hurry to attack. Instead, he waved his hand and two phantom-like figures appeared. It was Sword Demon and Beast Demon. You're finally willing to show yourselves. Unfortunately, with just the two of you acting mysterious, you'll still have to die. King Gus's anger transformed into boundless spirit energy that enveloped both the Sword Demon and the Beast Demon. Sword Demon used his finger as a sword and pointed it out. Boundless sword intent covered the sky and earth as if it was 10,000 swords returning to the origin. It tore through half of Gus' spiritual energy. At the same time, Beast Demon transformed into a huge ancient mutated beast. Its sharp claws tore through the sky and shattered Gus' spirit crystal. So strong! Gus exclaimed. He looked at Sword Demon and Beast Demon deeply, then looked at Leng Shiqi. 3 Unity of Heaven Origin Stage cultivators were indeed a powerful force. Following which, Gus raised his arm and called out. 4 people stood beside him, all of them Unity of Heaven Origin Stage experts. So what if they were strong? Could they fight 3 against 5? As long as these 3 were dealt with, the rest of Princess Carol's group would be no more than lambs waiting to be slaughtered. King Gus, are you trying to take advantage of your superior numbers? If that's the case, I'm more than happy to oblige, Leng Shiqi said calmly. He suddenly whistled and several demonic roars could be heard. 4 demonic beasts surging with powerful demonic energy appeared in the sky. They were a human-sized spirit monkey, a one-armed giant ape, a green snake, and a strange bird circling in the air. Demonic beasts. Where did these demonic beasts come from? This is the first time I've seen a demonic beast in my life. They are all rank 6 demonic beasts. Seeing the appearance of the spirit monkey, both Princess Carol's group and Gus's group were shocked. The demonic Miasma mountain range and the northern wastelands were too far away from Zhu Lu country, so the people here could only learn about demonic beasts from books. More than 99% of the people here had never seen a demonic beast in their lives. Not to mention rank 6 demonic beasts comparable to Unity of Heaven Origin Stage cultivators. Moreover, in general, demonic beasts of the same level were stronger than spirit cultivators. After all, their demonic bodies were their most powerful weapons. The most inconceivable thing was that demonic beasts would actually listen to spirit cultivators' orders. Demonic beasts and humans were clearly mortal enemies. Everyone was at a loss again. Or had their ideas always been wrong? Gary, Bo Shi, and the other Unity of Heaven Origin Stage cultivators suddenly felt the pressure double. Just now it was 5 against 3, but in the blink of an eye, it became 5 against 7. Not only were their numbers, but the opponent's individual strength was also stronger than them. The result of this battle was already known without even fighting. At this moment, Gus was not in the mood to think about these things. On the contrary, his face was not as crazy as before. Instead it became calm like an ancient well. Powerful, powerful. Gus praised Leng Shiqi as if he could already tell that Leng Shiqi was the real core. If I did not prepare a backup plan, I might really die here. Three lords, please show yourself. Suddenly the origin energy of heaven and earth exploded, and three old figures stood in the air. To be called lords by Gus, and to have the ability to step on air, these three were undoubtedly Zhu Lu country's Imperial Consecration Hall Sky Origin Stage cultivators. The appearance of these three made Princess Carol and the others' faces turn ashen. In the end, Gus still managed to invite Sky Origin Stage cultivators. Their defeat was already destined, and they could even foresee the outcome of their deaths. On the other hand, Gus's morale was greatly boosted. They looked at Leng Shiqi and Princess Carol as if they were looking at a pile of corpses. Gus raised his head and said, "Three lords, you have also seen it. This person has netherworld chi and can command demonic beasts. He is definitely not someone from our Zhu Lu country." For the throne, Carol did not hesitate to collude with the Buddhists and even collude with outsiders. She must be killed. None of the three old men paid attention to Gus. They were all staring at Leng Shiqi. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was wearing a large black and gold cloak like the Delta Origi and the Fengdu Emperor's mask, making it impossible for others to see through him. However, the dense netherworld chi on his body actually made the three Sky Origin Stage cultivators feel a trace of threat. This made the three of them immediately think of a place, the Netherworld Temple. They suspected that Leng Shiqi might be someone from the Netherworld Temple. This was no small matter, so one of them asked, "May I know your name?" Leng Shiqi said word by word, "Underworld, Fengdu Emperor." Chapter 827. Underworld? Never heard of it. Since he is not from the Nether Temple, then it is easy to deal with him. That person immediately spoke with killing intent. Emperor of Fengdu? What a big name. Remember, the one who will kill you is the shocking Dragon Sword King. This person suddenly stabbed out with his sword. Endless heavenly dragon's roar shook 1,000 li. The sword flipped and the heavenly dragon swung its tail. In an instant, the dragon's roar was about to destroy Leng Shiqi. However, Leng Shiqi's expression did not change. He did not even move. The others thought that he was scared silly. That shocking Dragon Sword King's mouth also curled up into a sinister smile. However, just as the sword dragon was roaring, a Buddhist chant was heard. Amit Ba. The Buddhist chant was not loud, but it contained a strange rhythm as if it could communicate with the heaven and earth. The heavens and the earth twisted, and the shocking sword dragon actually collapsed with a bang. A figure bathed in Buddhist light walked out. He is Master Tu Deng. Tu Deng is not wearing Underworld's attire because his identity is too easy to recognize. His appearance caused shocking Dragon Sword King's expression to turn heavy. He did not notice Tu Deng's existence earlier, and Tu Deng was able to easily destroy his sword dragon. This means that Tu Deng's strength is definitely above his. Also, the Buddhist technique that Tu Deng used was incomparably mystical. It is also unheard of. Lord Shocking Dragon, he is the leader of Buddhism, Tu Deng. Buddhism is indeed colluding with that traitor Kaluo. Gus recognized Tu Deng and spoke with hatred. So it is you who created Buddhism. At this moment, another heaven origin realm spoke. He is an old man with a goatee. From his words, he seems to be interested in Buddhism. Do you really want to stand against us? I admit that you are very strong. Perhaps stronger than any one of the three of us. However, you are alone. Why do you insist? Why don't you join Consecration Hall? We can make Buddhism the national religion of Zhu Lu country. Tu Deng remained silent. He clasped his hands together and Buddhist light soared into the sky behind him. An immovable wisdom king appeared and expressed his answer. Fight. Humph, ignorant. Finally, the heaven origin stage cultivator shouted coldly, Qing Lin, there's no need for you to waste words with him. Anyone who dares to interfere with the throne of Zhu Lu country is courting death. The vital energy of heaven and earth around him suddenly exploded, and the divine light above his head drove away the darkness. His hands formed a seal and suddenly, divine light bloomed. It was clearly a dazzling light, but it made people feel as if the sky had darkened. However, at this moment, a purple light floated out. That purple light was like a small boat in the middle of a monstrous wave. It looked like it could capsize at any time. However, what was surprising was that the purple light did not disappear. On the contrary, it grew stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, there was only a glaring purple light left in this space. Ah! He suddenly let out a strange cry. Others didn't know what was going on, but he knew that his divine light had been swallowed by the purple light at the beginning. For someone to be able to do this, how strong was he? Xinshao, what's going on? Startling Dragon Sword King asked anxiously. Divine Firmament, or rather, Venerable Divine Firmament, looked as if he was facing a great enemy. He shouted into the air, "Which expert is here? Show yourself." TSK TSK TSK. A mighty person from the royal family's hall of worship only has this much courage? Don't be nervous. Nine Leave appeared strangely with the Ghost Emperor Yao Yi mask. The three immediately frowned. They realized that Nine Leave's aura was very strange. It had the netherworld aura of the Leng Shiqi and the demonic aura of the Lu Monkey and the rest. Who exactly is this person? Of course, what they were more concerned about was Nine Leave's strength. Although they hadn't really fought, being able to swallow Divine Firmament's divine light was enough for them to take him seriously. Most importantly, Nine Leave made them realize that it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to take down Princess Carol tonight. If Princess Carol only had Tu Dang, who was at the Divine Firmament realm, it would be fine. They could just surround and attack him. But now there was another Nine Leave and he was very strong. The three of them might be able to defeat Tu Dang and Nine Leave together, but it was basically impossible to kill them. It was more likely that the five of them were in a stalemate. If that was the case, Leng Shiqi and the other rank 6 demonic beasts would be stronger than Gus, and the victory of this battle would be in Princess Carol's favor. Gus instantly thought of this and his face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He had never expected Princess Carol to be able to find 2 Divine Firmament Realm cultivators. How did she do it? At the same time, Gus felt like he was riding a tiger and couldn't get off. Although there were 3 Divine Firmament Realm cultivators fighting against 2, it was a pity that there was no absolute suppression. On the other hand, Princess Carol's Unity of Heaven Realm cultivators were far stronger than Gus's. As for Spirit Astral Realm cultivators, they were somewhat insignificant in a battle of this level. This time he had brought 99% of Zhulu country's strongest forces. If they still couldn't take down Princess Carol, there was no other way. From a certain point of view, everyone he brought was the pillar of Zhulu country. Most of them were the upper echelons of the various city lords, as well as the generals of the battle army. If they were to suffer heavy losses in this battle, then their vitality would be damaged. Now it was even more impossible for Gus to retreat. In that case he could only fight to the end. He transmitted a message to the 3 lords, "You can fight and then take advantage of the chaos to kill the traitor Carol. As long as she is dead, the traitor will have no reason to ascend the throne, and Zhulu country will naturally be stable." The 3 exchanged a look. They were Divine Firmament Realm cultivators, and they really couldn't bring themselves to attack Princess Carol, who was only at Spirit Astral Realm. But they also felt that Tooting and Nine Leave were very difficult to kill. It was indeed difficult to kill them directly, so this was the only way. Brother Startling Dragon, for the stability of Zhulu country, this is the only way. Our reputation is nothing compared to that of Zhulu country. Xinshao and Qinglin transmitted a message to each other. The Startling Dragon Sword King nodded his head imperceptibly. His body trembled as a heaven-shaking sword dragon condensed, resembling a gigantic sword that reached the heavens. Xinshao opened his arms and endless divine light soaked the sky. His momentum rose to the extreme. As for Qinglin, he directly transformed into a divine beast, Qilin, and his every move shook the earth. These 3 Divine Firmament Realm cultivators were ready to go all out. The immovable Wisdom King behind Tooting opened his eyes and locked onto Qinglin. Countless purple lights scattered around Nine Leave like meteors, shrouding Xinshao. As for Startling Dragon Sword King, he was still choosing whether to besiege Tooting or Nine Leave first, but suddenly he felt a murderous intent. He turned to look, and the murderous intent actually came from the man who called himself the Emperor of Fengdu. Leng Shiqi raised his head and looked straight at Startling Dragon Sword King. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. Suddenly the gates of hell, full of death, the netherworld and inauspiciousness loomed in a cloud of black gas. The 1,000 illusion Dao sword slashed out, and a sword immortal phantom stepped out. Immediately, Leng Shiqi's divine soul came out of the sheath and integrated into the sword immortal phantom together with the countless souls of the mansion of hell. With one sword, ghosts and gods were shocked. Ghost God Sword. Chapter 828. At first, the startling dragon sword monarch was filled with disdain when he saw that Leng Shiqi actually dared to attack him. A mere Heaven Man Unity cultivator was just a slightly stronger ant in his eyes. Daring to interfere in a battle between Heaven Origin cultivators was simply courting death. However, the startling dragon sword monarch was really shocked when he saw the demon sword monarch. Not only him, but even Divine Firmament, Qing Lin and Gus widened their eyes. How could a Heaven Man Unity cultivator be so powerful? A dragon scale sword appeared in the startling dragon sword monarch's hand. Facing Leng Shiqi, he had to use his sword. The moment he unsheathed his sword, a boundless aura instantly descended. His sword technique seemed to be able to stir the void, and a humongous sword dragon phantom that was thousands of feet long appeared like a god descending from the heavens. Although that sword dragon was an illusory existence, that boundless sharp sword intent was like a thorn in one's back, and it descended as if the sky was collapsing. The sword dragon's descent immediately caused the demon sword monarch to tremble, but the demon sword monarch mysteriously disappeared. When it reappeared, it actually directly pierced into the sword dragon's body. In that instant, countless netherworld sword auras erupted and tore the sword dragon into two from the inside. However, the demon sword monarch was finally exhausted. The startling dragon sword monarch was stunned. Even a Heaven Origin cultivator would not be able to easily block that sword attack, let alone a Heaven Origin cultivator. However, this Emperor of Fengdu did it. Supremacy Divine Firmament and Qing Lin, who were fighting fiercely, could not help but be surprised. Nine Leaves smiled strangely and suddenly split into thousands of illusory figures. With a flick of her fingers, purple light instantly filled the sky, everywhere in the sky and on the ground. Immediately after, a 1,000 feet long giant scorpion suddenly appeared. The giant scorpion opened its mouth and spat out a gust of green gas. That gas was like the nemesis of the Divine Firmament Supremacy's divine light. It was instantly sucked clean. Supremacy Divine Firmament's aura clearly weakened. He was shocked to discover that a portion of the divine light that he had cultivated for so many years had disappeared. He stared at Nine Leaf with wide eyes. Who exactly are you? You dare to be distracted while fighting with me? Old brat, your luck isn't shallow either. You can actually use your soul force to draw in the essence energy of heaven and earth. Truly impressive. Following that, Nine Leaf teased, but you met me. I can only say that your luck is bad. On the other side, Qing Lin, who was fighting with Tooting, had a bad feeling. The startling dragon sword monarch was being held back by a Heaven Man Unity cultivator, while the Divine Firmament Supremacy was being suppressed by Nine Leaf. If this continued, they would definitely lose. He had to step up. The divine beast Qilin looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. In an instant, thunderclouds covered the sky. Countless green lightning bolts intertwined and collided, creating bursts of sparks. The power of lightning tore through space and attacked Tu Deng. However, Tu Deng didn't move at all. The immovable Wisdom King statue behind him supported the sky with its arms, unmoving like a mountain. Chi-chi. Countless bolts of azure lightning struck the immovable Wisdom King statue, emitting ear-piercing sounds of thunder. However, no matter how the lightning struck, the immovable Wisdom King statue remained unmoved. Qing Lin's heart sank. He couldn't even break through Tu Deng's defense with his full strength. The startling dragon sword monarch didn't divert his attention to care about the Divine Firmament Supremacy and Qing Lin. After his sword dragon was broken, the sword aura in his hand suddenly changed. It changed from the original majestic aura to the current ethereal and gentle aura. A dragon's roar reverberated in midair. Dark clouds covered the sky, and torrential rain poured down. A dragon could move the clouds and summon the rain, benefiting the common people. He could use his sword to transform into a dragon and shake the heavens and earth. He could also summon the clouds and summon the rain. However, the rain the startling dragon sword monarch summoned wasn't the sweet dew that benefited the common people. It was a sky full of sword aura that could take one's life. Leng Shiqi's eyes revealed a trace of seriousness. From the power of the startling dragon sword monarch's consecutive attacks, his cultivation level was already very close to the peak of the divine origin realm. As expected of the strongest expert guarding Zhulu country. Just as that sky full of sword aura filled the sky, a fist-sized black dot appeared in the sky. No one noticed it in the dark night. But suddenly that black dot emitted a powerful magical power. All of the startling dragon sword monarch's sword aura actually reversed in midair and shot toward that black dot. What was even more surprising was that when the sword aura hit the black dot, it disappeared without a trace like a clay ox entering the sea. Not even a trace was left behind. The law of gravity, black hole space. The startling dragon sword monarch also felt a pulling force that wanted to pull him toward the black ball. Even a late-stage divine origin expert like him had to use all his strength to suppress that force. Not only him, but Supremacy Divine Firmament and Qinglin were also affected by the black hole space. Qinglin was still fine since Tu Deng didn't take the initiative to attack. However, Supremacy Divine Firmament was in trouble. The cultivation technique he had cultivated his entire life just happened to be countered by Nine Leave. Nine Leave was slowly devouring his strength, so he could only passively struggle. Now that he was pulled by the black hole space, he instantly revealed a flaw. Nine Leave let out a sharp ear-piercing sound that seemed to be able to pull one's soul out. A huge bump appeared on Supremacy Divine Firmament's back as if something was going to pop out. Supremacy Divine Firmament's face turned pale with fright as that was a part of his soul. The reason he was able to break through to the Divine Origin realm back then was that he had found another way. He had split his soul into two and used the power of his soul to communicate with the essence energy of heaven and earth, thus breaking through in one go. He didn't expect to meet an ancestor who played with the power of the soul today. The part of his soul that he had split became his own death sentence. Once that part of his soul was taken away, he would immediately lose the power of the Divine Origin realm. In a battle of this level, only death awaited him. No. Big brother startling dragon, Qinglin, come and help me. Supremacy Divine Firmament could only shout for help. Qinglin turned around and was also shocked. They had only fought for a short while, so why did Divine Firmament look like he was about to die? Just as he was about to help, Tu Deng finally moved. He used his palm as a saber and slashed out with it. Light shone brightly and even the void was torn apart. The phantom of a Buddha of slaughter appeared, and the chanting of Buddhist hymns could be heard. Indeed, it carried a murderous intent that could shake one's soul. Qinglin instantly felt a chill on his back, followed by cold sweat. At that moment he actually had a feeling that he would be killed. He would be killed by Tu Deng's saber. Qinglin didn't know if it was an illusion or a premonition of death, but he was sure that it was best for him not to move. Currently, this battle was already completely out of his control. He was already doing his best to stall Tu Deng. Thus, Qinglin silently retreated, but he didn't attack Tu Deng anymore. The two of them just stared at each other in midair. Supremacy Divine Firmament was almost in despair when he saw this scene. He could only place his hopes on the startling Dragon Sword King. However, the startling Dragon Sword King didn't have time to care about him as the power of the Fire Phoenix, White Tiger, Water Dragon, and Black Tortoise were slowly fusing in front of him. Lung Shiqi transformed into his indestructible evil Buddha body. He had 2 wings and 6 arms, and his entire body was covered in a dense ghostly aura. The power of law stirred up the wind and clouds. Force Spirit Formation. Chapter 829. The 4 Spirits Formation diagram fused the power of the 4 elements, causing the heavenly might to descend in a panic. Shocking Dragon Sword King's heart was in turmoil. Just now, Lung Shiqi's black hole space contained the power of law. He thought that it was formed by Lung Shiqi using some kind of treasure. But now, he saw Lung Shiqi condense the 4 Spirits Formation diagram with his own eyes. A unity of heaven and man realm actually controlled a trace of the power of the heavenly law. How was this possible? It was too absurd. Shocking Dragon Sword King even thought that his old eyes were blurred for a moment. But the 4 Spirits Formation diagram's power of law told him that all of this was real. Shocking Dragon Sword King stabilized his mind and did not waste any time. His figure moved like a swimming dragon. Majestic sword intent burst out like a god descending to the world with a loud bang. The ground within a radius of dozens of miles was violently suppressed by this sword, forming a huge pit. When the 4 Spirits Formation diagram fell, countless sounds of metal clashing could be heard in the air. It was simply deafening. Under Shocking Dragon Sword King's full strength, he finally blocked the 4 Spirits Formation diagram. Just as he was about to heave a sigh of relief, the 4 Spirits Formation diagram shone brightly and then exploded with a loud bang. The spiritual energy fluctuations in the air were accompanied by a huge wave that could be seen with the naked eye. Nine Leave and the others who were still fighting had to retreat temporarily. Those unity of heaven and man realm and spirit astral realm cultivators on the ground were sent flying. They were in a sorry state. Shocking Dragon Sword King roared and formed a seal with both hands. The long sword in his hand shattered with a loud bang and a powerful force suddenly burst out. Then a dragon shadow flashed out. However, it was not a mystical sky dragon, but a remnant dragon with a tragic aura. Leng Shiqi frowned. This shocking dragon sword king actually directly destroyed his own spiritual artifact and sacrificed his sword spirit. That spiritual sword was also an 8th level earth weapon. He used his sky origin realm cultivation to control the sword spirit and burst out with a powerful attack. Seeing this, Leng Shiqi knew that the four spirits formation diagram could not do anything to shocking dragon sword king. Sure enough, although the remnant dragon phantom was not as powerful as before, it was able to restrain its endless power and neutralize the power of the explosion of the four spirits array diagram. However, that startling dragon sword king was not in a good state either. His complexion was currently pale, and there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. Clearly he had received internal injuries. Moreover, his self-destruction of the sword spirit was equivalent to severing one of his arms. This would greatly reduce his battle prowess. He took the opportunity to observe the other battlefield, and his heart immediately sank to the bottom. Qing Lin was being stared at by Tu Deng. He didn't even dare to move. Venerable Divine Firmament was in an even worse state than the Sword Monarch himself. At that moment, a blurry figure similar to Venerable Divine Firmament was about to be pulled out. Venerable Divine Firmament's pained expression showed that he could not hold on for long. Startling Dragon Sword King was incomparably shocked. Where did these experts come from? The fact that Tu Deng was able to create his own Buddhist sect meant that he was indeed an extremely talented individual. It was still acceptable for him to have such strength. But who were Nine Lieve and the great emperor of Fengdu? Each one was stronger than the other. Leng Shiqi's cultivation level was clearly not high, but his strength was close to the peak of the divine essence realm. Since when did such a freakish prodigy appear in this world? Leng Shiqi had not been idle during those few months when he was building the king's mansion. He had constantly recalled and comprehended that battle with Zhuozhou, and his control of the power of laws had become even more skilled. For example, now he had used the black hole space to neutralize one of the startling Dragon Sword King's attacks. Subsequently, it had greatly affected the startling Dragon Sword King's strength. He could also use two types of laws at the same time. Otherwise, just the four-spirit formation alone would not be able to force the startling Dragon Sword King to such a state. The startling Dragon Sword King could not care so much now. An evil force suddenly rose from his body, and at the same time, his body rapidly shriveled up. In the blink of an eye, he was like a dried corpse. Everyone who noticed this was stunned. The startling Dragon Sword King was actually forced to overdraw his lifespan by Leng Shiqi? How could this be? That startling Dragon Sword King did not have much lifespan left. Even if he did not die after this battle, he would probably have to prepare for his funeral. What really shocked everyone was that Leng Shiqi's strength was too abnormal. Not only them, but also Delta Origi from the Mansion of the Dead thought so. At this time they were watching the battle from afar, and their eyes were all filled with disbelief and shock. For example, Delta Origi did not see the battle between Leng Shiqi and Zhuozhou last time in the demonic Miasma Mountains. This time she really saw the strength of Leng Shiqi. Yushu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They came out of the Blood Mist Island at the same time as Leng Shiqi. It had only been a few years and they were still practicing hard in the Gang Spirit realm. However, Leng Shiqi was already able to force a Tianyuan realm expert to overdraw his lifespan. The difference between the two was really huge. After a long time, Meng Ming suddenly sighed deeply and completely gave up chasing Leng Shiqi. Even if Leng Shiqi stayed in the same place for dozens of years, he would not be able to reach such strength today. How could he chase after him? On the other side, Tuding and Jiuli were also surprised. When they knew Leng Shiqi, they all knew him as seniors and experts. But tonight, Leng Shiqi's strength was no weaker than theirs. In some aspects, he was even stronger than them. For example, the power of the law of heaven and earth. This was the key to opening the door of the Tongshan realm. Startling Dragon Sword King was now focused. Since the situation had come to this, he had no way out. If he retreated, he would let Zhu Lugua fall into the hands of others. He did not believe that Princess Carol could invite these experts over. It was nothing more than the other party secretly controlling Zhu Lugua. He absolutely could not let this happen. Startling Dragon Sword King did not have a sword in his hand, but he was the sharpest sword in the world. He pointed out a finger and in an instant, a dragon roared. However, it was not a majestic sky dragon but a bone dragon. A dark, decaying and terrifying aura spread out. Leng Shiqi snickered in his heart. He was the least afraid of these evil forces. As his spirit energy surged, the Mahavarakana form appeared, and a giant golden dragon coiled up and soared into the sky. Immediately after, endless Buddhist light expelled the night sky, and Buddhist lotuses scattered down. In the voice of the ninth heaven, a Buddhist palm that covered the sky suddenly slammed down. Mahavarakana dragon flame palm. Amit Ba. Tuding, who was at the side, chanted. He formed a seal with his hand, and the Buddhist lotuses in the air suddenly gathered rapidly. Under a dazzling Buddhist light, they condensed into a huge purifying Buddhist lotus. The appearance of the Mahavarakana dragon flame palm and the purifying Buddhist lotus instantly caused the bone dragon's aura to drop by a large amount. Lung Shichi seized the opportunity, and his body suddenly shone with starlight. Countless star charts radiated out, turning the sky into a starry universe. The countless stars were connected to each other, and vaguely, they formed a giant hand that reached the sky. The giant hand crossed time and space like a meteor, and instantly pressed the bone dragon to the ground. With a series of cracking sounds, the bone dragon was actually directly crushed into fine powder. Great star-plucking hand. Princess Carol was shocked and charged forward. Chapter 830. Everyone was dumbfounded when the bone dragon was smashed into pieces, including Lung Shichi himself. The power of the great star-plucking hand is so great? Even he himself could not believe it. The great star-plucking hand was a spiritual technique created by the Star Clan and spirit cultivators. It could be said that it combined the strengths of the Star Clan and spirit cultivators, and its power was close to entangling spiritual opportunity. Lung Shichi had a strong Star Clan bloodline, and he was a human, so he could perfectly display the power of the great star-plucking hand. Moreover, the bone dragon of the frightening Dragon Sword King was suppressed by the Mahavarakana dragon flame palm and purifying Buddha lotus. It was already good that it could retain 50% of its power. As a result, the scene just now occurred. The frightening Dragon Sword King was stunned. He overdrew his lifespan, but the result was that it could not withstand a single blow. At this moment, it was not only the bone dragon that was smashed, but also the dignity and faith of the frightening Dragon Sword King. In his life he could not be said to be invincible, but he was a powerhouse that guarded a region, which expert in the 6 Western countries did not fear his existence. His position in the Zhulu country was even more extraordinary. Generations of kings and royal relatives had to respectfully call him Lord when they saw him, because he was the guardian of the Zhulu country. But today this guardian was actually crushed by the Emperor of Fengdu, who came out of nowhere. What was even more ridiculous was that this Emperor of Fengdu was only at the unity of heaven and man realm. For the first time in his life, the frightening Dragon Sword King began to wonder if he was dreaming. Below, King Gus's face was filled with despair. Even the strongest of the Zhulu country, the frightening Dragon Sword King, was defeated, which meant that he was also defeated. The result of his defeat was that he would lose the throne of the Zhulu country, and also his life. Gus was filled with regret. Of all the things he should have done, he should not have left Royal City. At first he came with full confidence. In fact, he should have been full of confidence. He had brought dozens of experts and 3 Sky Origin stage experts with him. Dealing with a mere Princess Carol was as easy as chopping vegetables. But who could have predicted that the opponent's strength was stronger? If Gus hadn't come himself, he could have escaped as soon as he got the news. Even if he lost the throne, he could at least save his own life. Unfortunately, man proposes but God disposes. Under such a coincidence, it seemed like he was really going to die here. However, Gus wasn't going to just wait for death. He suddenly shouted, "Run! Split up and run!" Before he finished speaking, he turned into a stream of water and quickly retreated. Trying to escape? Have you asked for our permission? Lu Ho suddenly grinned. His body moved, leaving a trail of afterimages behind him. His speed was even faster than Gus's. Not far away, a huge green net suddenly appeared in front of Gus. Gus immediately decided to burn his blood essence, and blood-red pillars of water surged out of his body in an attempt to tear the giant green net apart. However, the giant net was extremely sticky, and he couldn't tear it apart in a short time. A green snake emerged from the ground. "I've been watching you for a long time." At the same time, Lu Ho had already caught up. Seeing that he couldn't escape, King Gus's eyes glowed red. He could only forcefully break through the joint attack of Lu Ho and the green snake. Lung Shichi saw that Gus was stopped and felt relieved. Everyone here could escape, but only Gus had to die. However, before that, he had to deal with the Sword King first. It only took 1 or 2 breaths of time for Gus to escape and be stopped. The Sword King still hadn't recovered from the shock. In fact, for a Sky Origin stage cultivator, this shouldn't happen. However, there was no other way. He was indeed beaten up badly. As for escaping, the Sword King didn't think about it. Moreover, with his injured body, he wouldn't be able to escape from the 3 of them. Even if he was lucky enough to escape, he wouldn't have many years to live. Rather than that, he might as well drag one of them down with him before he died. A ruthless glint flashed past his eyes. Lung Shiqi's sharp senses detected the Sword Monarch's thoughts. How could he give the Sword Monarch a chance to counterattack before death? Lung Shiqi clapped his hands and a pale yellow brilliance enveloped the surrounding area. Everyone felt as if there was a huge mountain pressing down on their shoulders. Those spirit astral realm cultivators were all pressed to the ground, unable to move. Only those in the unity of heaven and man realm could barely hold on. Even those in the Sky Origin stage fell down one by one, no longer able to stay in the air. Law of Earth, gravity space. With a flick of Lung Shiqi's finger, dozens of beams of light struck Tooting, Nine Leaf, Gusan, Princess Carol and the others. With a flash of light, they were no longer affected by the gravitational space. The Sword King's body was under the greatest pressure. Lung Shiqi exerted more than 70% of the gravity on the Sword King's body. At this moment, the Sword King's body was surrounded by dense dragon-shaped sword shadows. However, those sword shadows couldn't get too far from his body. At most, they were suppressed by the invisible gravity. Lung Shiqi pointed his finger and a dreamy rainbow light shot out. Thousand Autumn Dream Finger. The Sword King pointed between his eyebrows and a drop of dark red blood flowed out. The aura on his body also recovered a bit. The dragon-shaped sword shadows instantly turned into ferocious blood dragons and shattered the rainbow light. Lung Shiqi certainly didn't think that he could take the Sword King's life with just Thousand Autumn Dream Finger. This was just a feint. Just after the rainbow light shot out, 6 mysterious vortexes appeared behind him, and a wave of spiritual energy that coincided with the heavenly Tao spread out. At the same time, Lung Shiqi's eyes flashed. He reached out and grabbed a shadow from the Sword King's body and threw it into the vortex behind him. Illusion, 6 Paths of Reincarnation. Then Lung Shiqi couldn't be bothered to care about how many lifetimes the Sword King's soul could survive in the 6 Paths of Reincarnation. He suddenly became very domineering and punched the Sword King's dominating barrier. The Sword King's entire body was directly smashed into the ground and exploded into a cloud of blood. The most powerful person in the Zhu Road Kingdom's Hall of Worship, the guardian deity who had guarded the Zhu Road Kingdom for countless years, the Sword King, had fallen. At that moment, Supremacy Divine Firmament, who was still struggling bitterly, suddenly screamed. The 6 Paths of Reincarnation that Lung Shiqi summoned had a great effect on the soul. Supremacy Divine Firmament, who could still hold on for a while, finally couldn't control the other half of his soul. Nine Leaf immediately pulled it out of his body. Then it was stuffed into Nine Leaf's mouth. No! Supremacy Divine Firmament's aura suddenly plummeted from Divine Firmament to Heaven-Man Unity. He screamed in despair, but he was directly pressed down by the gravitational space. He couldn't escape even if he wanted to. Nine Leaf transformed back into human form and licked the corner of his mouth. A ball of pitch-black netherworld aura turned into a palm and wrapped around Supremacy Divine Firmament. Soon only a pale white skeleton was left. Amit Ba. Tu Deng slowly closed his eyes as if he couldn't bear to see this tragic scene. Meanwhile, Qing Lin felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. The Sword King and Supremacy Divine Firmament died just like that? More importantly, both Lung Shiqi and Nine Leaf had their eyes on him. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.